Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Al-Mu'taz Abbadi, working to the Union for the Mediterranean on the water issue. We are very pleased to have this meeting organized today under the leadership of the European Union and the Kingdom of Jordan, Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. This meeting is first online meeting on the water expert group meeting, the formal UfM dialogue meeting. As been communicated with all of you, the objective of this meeting is to set up a plan accordance to the UfM water agenda and the sustainable development goals, as well as to align the water sector in the UfM region with a special focus on the Mediterranean region aftermath of COVID and pandemic. With this regard, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Vangalis Konstantinos to give the rule of this meeting and to before we starting with our co-presidents.
Thank you very much, Al-Mu'taz. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be online with you. As you know, this is a packed agenda that we have for the 2 days. It is even more than a normal WEG. So we have to be really looking after the rules of our virtual house. And I will mention that you have received them also by mail. The first one is that all participants should be mute, so we don't have noises on the background. Speakers, after they talk, they will be muted. And we will have an allocated time as it is in the agenda, and there will be a clock that will follow that. Please stay really tuned on the time that has been assigned to the speakers. We have a chat box. Those of you familiar with Zoom, you know how this works. Please leave your comments and suggestions there. Please do not go into questions. We won't be able to follow this up. However, all your comments, all your good suggestions, your inputs will be recorded, and of course, we will have them as votes in the minutes of the report of the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded on the YouTube channel of the Union for the Mediterranean. Last point has to do with simultaneous interpretation. You will see the interpretation bottom at the bar or in the screen at the down edge of the screen. You see there English, French, and strangely Japanese. This has to do with Zoom arrangements. We were not able to have there the label Arabic, but Arabic is there.
Okay, thank you very much, Vangalis. To start our meeting, as usual, in the Union for the Mediterranean, we would like to welcome our co-presidency. Today, we will have His Excellency, Mr. Ali Subuh, Secretary General of Ministry of Water and Irrigation, Jordan. And we also will have His Excellency Daniel Calleja, Director General for DG Environment, European Commission, via video message, as well as we will have our friend Enrique Trotman, Head of Unit of DG NEAR, as a co-presidency remark. So, floor is yours, Mr. Ali Subuh.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a good opportunity to hear each other after a long time and after COVID-19 bad situation in all the world. Relating to Jordan, we started to study the impact of the COVID nowadays and what after COVID or post-COVID. So we discovered that a lot of priorities now have been changed. And we think that the list of priorities now we prepared and sent it to the cabinet, where the main strategic projects still almost the same, but the first draft of the impact showing that almost 1.8 million GD, the loss of the water sector, because as you know, there is no any collection during from March until nowadays as revenue to the water sector. In addition to that, there is a lot of pressure in our pipeline to supply people more than before. because as you know, the people need to wash, to clean all the time. So, and additional chemical materials needed for the sector where chlor, for example, in all the in and out of the treatment plants to take care, because there is many reports from outside showing that the wastewater can have this virus where nobody approve it, but to take care, we put additional chemical materials there to take care. So if you make a pressure on the pipeline, it means more losses, because it was not used to have this amount. So we supplied more than on summertime from March until now. So it's impacted the water table indirect, losses that we make a pressure in the groundwater, that the water table decline more than before, because always we have pressure on August or on September, but nowadays we started since March. So the first draft calculation was around, as I said, 1.8 million GD per day. In addition to that, the factories that supply us with the spare parts needed for the maintenance, we had a big problem that delay of the maintenance in all the equipments in the sector used by pumps or by the treatment plants and others. So now we have a good, clear plan how to be back. And I would like to thank all the friends from the donor communities that they try to supply us or to support us with the additional finance, at least to avoid additional problems, because the government reduced the finance issue for the water sector by at least 20 to 30%. So from the capital cost or the running cost, the same thing. So it's not easy job for us, because we had a problem with the water supply before COVID-19, but it's additional pressure on all our resources or our services to the people. So I hope we will be back, because now we are looking to our financial strategy to be changed, and the same thing, the financial strategy from UfM should be, I think, rethink about it again to see the priorities for all the UfM countries. So again, I would like to thank all of you for coming at this time, because really with COVID, you are not allowed to see each other, but at least we see your nice faces here, and I hope everybody will be healthy and hold the word to be soon out of this bad situation.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this opening remark. Now I will give the floor to our company in order to play the video from His Excellency Daniel Calleja.
It is a great pleasure to address the Water Experts Group of the Union for the Mediterranean. And I would like my first words to be words to congratulate you for your work. I know you are having very intense discussions, and we are not living through very easy times these days. Today, we see both a climate crisis, but we also see a broader ecological crisis. And if you add to that the health crisis we have now, with the coronavirus, which is having an impact in our economies, in our societies, in our lives, I think it is clear that things need to change. We need to act together, and we need to act now. Now, at the same time that we are dealing with the crisis, the European Commission is also working towards the recovery. It is very important that we ensure that the recovery is done in a sustainable way. It would be a complete mistake to return to business as usual policies. We need to ensure that the recovery is a green recovery, or as the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said, we need to build back better. I would say we need to build back better together, because we need to. The European Union has announced our new growth strategy. This is the European Green Deal. It is a strategy to transform Europe into a modern, into a resource efficient, into a clean, and into a competitive economy. And we want to do three things. First of all, we would like to be the first region in the world to be carbon neutral by 2050. Second, we want and we must decouple economic growth from resource use. And it is possible to do so. Europe has reduced its greenhouse gas emissions 23%, and we have increased GDP 60% over the past years. So it is possible to decouple economic growth from pollution. And the third thing which we have to do is we have to ensure that this recovery is fair, it is just, and that we have to avoid to leave people behind. No person and no place, no country, no region should be left behind. Now, you are going to hear more about the European Green Deal later, but I would underline that the Green Deal is also a roadmap for making the EU economy a sustainable economy. We need to turn climate and environmental challenges into opportunities, and we have to do it across all the policy areas under this green just transition I was referring to. Boosting the efficiency of resources, moving to a circular economy, restoring biodiversity, cutting pollution. This is these are again three key areas of action. Now, water management is an issue that touches upon many of the themes of the Green Deal. It is really a cross-cutting issue. And we have now a framework for action and a degree of certainty for the next 5 years. We would like that the European Green Deal is the motor for our recovery. And of course, water has to be at the central element of investment in water, investment in restoring biodiversity, investment in avoiding desertification, investment also in cleaning the rivers, in cleaning the seas, in favoring fight against marine pollution are essential areas. And we could not ask for a clearer example than the Mediterranean, of a region where, when we act together, we can show that we can be successful. Why? Because what each of us does affects the others, and the impacts are visible to all. They are visible in the air we breathe, in the sea, in the beaches, in the water we drink, and on all the ecosystems on which our region depends. This is why the work of your group continues to be so important for us. This is why I want to encourage you to continue discussing issues, to continue exploring solutions, to continue to finding good common best practices and common approaches that we can implement together. I would like to leave you with a final remark. The final remark is that the European Commission continues to attach great importance to the Union for the Mediterranean. It attaches the greatest importance to your group, but also to the work that you do. We were with you when the Water Experts Group was launched. We have supported the water experts group as its work has taken shape. We brought water ministers together in 2017, launched the Union for the Mediterranean Water Agenda. And as we move forward, I can say that the Commission remains fully committed to water cooperation in the Mediterranean. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful meeting.
Thank you very much. Now we go with the final remark from our co-presidency, DG NEAR, Enrique Troitman. You know that the UfM Secretariat always pleased to work with you, DG NEAR. So without your support, we are not here today. Thank you very much. So Enrique, floor is yours.
Voila. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen.
Excuse me.
Sorry?
Can you ask everybody to shut down their video? Because the sound is extremely bad, and I would really like to understand what the presenters were saying.
Well, I'm not really in charge here. Should we shut down the videos or not? I don't mind.
Excuse me. This is something that the controller will decide. Thank you, Alicia. Please, Enrique, go ahead.
Okay. So once again, good afternoon to everybody, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, excellencies. I'm very, very happy to speak to you this afternoon, representing DG NEAR, which acts as a parent DG to the UfM inside the European Commission. And I think this event that starts now is important in two aspects. First of all, as a technological frontrunner and guinea pig, if you want, of all the meetings that will take place in the future in a fully virtual manner. And of course, also because of the importance of the subject. The recent scientific assessment of climate environmental changes in the Mediterranean basin, the MEDEC report, which was launched at the regional forum of the UfM last October, has really made clear the scientific evidence of the impact of climate change in the region. Water availability will be the first and the most felt consequence. And in fact, it is the one aspect where most countries in the region feel it already now. We still do not have a complete assessment of the consequences of the COVID crisis, but as my colleague Daniel Calleja just said, the Commission is determined to stick to its long-term objective of a greener and more sustainable economic and society through the Green Deal. This is even more true after the COVID crisis. The pandemic is a tragedy, and it has hit thousands of families in the EU and in our neighboring countries, and it has impacted our economies. We have early indications that maybe the health impact is slightly less dramatic in the southern neighborhood of the EU, but the economic impact will be even more harsh. And there is a risk that this aspect overshadows everything we've been discussing until then. But after this crisis, the resources we have, natural resources and the financial ones, have become even more precious, and we must make even better use of them. So the recovery will have to be sustainable. As Antonio Guterres, who was mentioned by Daniel Calleja, also the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, the Green Deal will be our motor for the recovery, and the EU action should be guided by the principles of doing no harm and building back better, so we can foster a green transition wherever possible. This, of course, links up to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement that are both used as blueprint for a better recovery. So therefore, the Commission is elaborating a very comprehensive answer to the situation, which will support not just an economic recovery, but also a sustainable one, meaning to increase resilience, sustainability, resource efficiency, circularity, and the low emissions transition agenda that will be reflected in our cooperation with our partners. As you know, the Commission has just reproposed the multi-annual financial framework for the years 2021 to 2027, which is hopefully going to be agreed still this year. And that will be the blueprint and the basis on which to push these common agendas ahead. So the Green Deal is composed of a number of thematic strategies, and that will be discussed more in detail during this two-day meeting. Some of the aspects of most importance are pollution reduction, resource management, circular economy, and protection of biodiversity. These are themes which no country alone can succeed in, and we need international cooperation. In the case of the EU and our close neighbors to the south, we share the Mediterranean Sea, the Mediterranean climate, and the challenges ahead of us in terms of increasing desertification, coastal erosion, loss of biodiversity, and more air and water pollution, as well as extreme meteorological phenomena. This is all not a surprise, and water scarcity is a certainty for many countries already now. So we now have the opportunity to cooperate to mitigate the effects of water scarcity by defining joint strategies to make efficient use of water, to manage jointly shared aquifers, and to organize financial flows to support investment. This is going to be a very important aspect of the work of the EU in the next 7 years, because the investment pots that are available for guarantees, for blending, for work with the international financial institutions that can put major infrastructure investments, for example, in the water sector, have been doubled in the reproposed multi-annual financial framework. So therefore, the money is there. We just have to find a way to properly plan it and to implement it. In order to have the multilateral framework, we have the UN institution and the conventions as we know them, but we also have the UfM, which is our own cooperation platform and which is really the context we want to discuss all these things in. So as the EU, we continue to support cooperation through climate and water diplomacy initiatives, technical assistance and cooperation with our partners, with bilateral and regional projects, and by being proactive in the multilateral platforms. So therefore, I hope that with the implementation of the UfM water agenda, we will take the opportunity to address the challenges related to management of water, which is really one of the most precious resources we have on Earth. And in that spirit, I wish you a really fruitful and enriching meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Enrica, for the excitement and all great intervention from your side. We have taken on board your comments and to be followed up later. As seen on the agenda, we have our partners intervention now. The main partner that financially support the UfM water agenda is SIDA. So we would like to hear from Peter Lomberg, Consular Head of the Regional Development Cooperation for Middle East and North Africa, Embassy of Sweden in Jordan. Then from our technical support partner, Monica Weber-Farr, Executive Secretary of Global Water Partnership. And we will end this welcoming remark by remarks from His Excellency Ambassador Nasser Kamel, the Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean. So to start with Peter. Peter, floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Almutaz, and excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, and friends of the water agenda. We are here today to discuss the best ways to achieve financial sustainability in the water sector and ways forward in the post-COVID-19 context. We at SIDA are delighted to see the work continuing in the region despite these challenges that we are all going through right now. At SIDA, we appreciate the work that UfM is conducting and the close partnership with the GWP Med to maintain dialogue among the countries on all fronts in this region. Although countries have locked down themselves to fight the pandemic, it's proven more than ever that no one will succeed with this endeavor alone. We will only defeat this all defeat this together if we're going to be successful. It's now more evident than ever that development cooperation agencies need to engage and promote regional integration. And SIDA is a proud supporter of that, backing the policies of the Swedish government. Since integration and collaboration can have a strong impact on the development and well-being of the people in this region. This is why the Swedish MENA strategy takes a regional approach, meaning that we see the need for countries and their neighbors in this region to cooperate with one another. The bottom line, is that such cooperation leads to mutual understanding, respect, and common solution to common challenges, and ultimately to economic prosperity, environmental sustainability, and long-lasting peace. Sweden have been supporting UfM since 2017 with a budget of more than 6.5 million euros. Sweden recognizes the role of UfM and the way it plays a catalyzing role in regional cooperation through the agreed UfM water agenda, bringing together not only water, but other line ministries on the various nexus approaches, international and regional institutions, as well as regional stakeholder organizations. Swedish support to UfM is a core funding with soft earmarking for gender and environment. Water and sanitation is indeed a key sector for MENA, where there is scope for investments, which will create jobs and improve living conditions. For example, SIDA supports UfM and GWP Med in their efforts to assist to the transition of developing countries in the Mediterranean, including MENA, into water-efficient economies, which is expected substantially to assist employment generation and opportunities for youth and for women, which is essentially a region that, according to the World Bank statistics, needs to generate more than 300 million new jobs by 2050. So we have 3 decades ahead of us to overcome this humongous challenge in a region that desperately needs it. Furthermore, Sweden is now looking into new ways to support UfM and GWP, and we are now merging an agreement and to see if we can enhance synergies and partnerships, both on policy level and on technical level. The COVID-19 crisis has impacted us all and the way we are now working. The fact that we are sitting here today on video conference is a telling example. At SIDA, we have been instructed from early on in the crisis to show flexibility and support our partners to respond and overcome the situation as it's now playing out. And we are still committed to continue our long-term support to this region. This shows the importance of MENA to Sweden and the Swedish commitment to help countries to reach their full potential and leave no one behind. With these short words, I would like to wish you all a successful 2 days in this event, and we are very much looking forward to listen and learn from these discussions. Thank you very much and good deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for this, and thank you very much for your outstanding support. Without great work at technical level, and we cannot succeed. And announcing that GWB and GWB Med are our technical support, I am happy to present Monica Weber-Fahar to address you now.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and friends, I'm so glad to be with you this afternoon and contribute to the online consultation meeting on the UfM water agenda that aims to exchange views for everyone to move forward in the COVID-19 era. Let me start by recognizing something that impressed me on the outset of this online event, everyone's engagement here. 21 countries, more than 30 institutions and regional stakeholder organizations with more than 110 participants registered, and over 90 of them are already here this afternoon. Along with the full agenda, these numbers demonstrate the wealth of information and insight that are to be shared here and discussed, and importantly, the level of everybody's commitment in this important process of the Union for the Mediterranean, particularly at the challenging times we're all going through. With our societies and economies hit hard by the COVID-19 crisis, and while we take steps within the new normal, we should only become bolder and more decisive on our collective efforts for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm so glad hearing voices earlier in these various addresses to confirming that. Water security is at the core of the SDGs, of COVID preparedness, and of their interlinkages. We are called, all of us, to face these today with vision and with wisdom. Embraced by us all, the UfM water agenda and financial strategy can foster that, offering an agreed regional plan for action. We at GWP share everybody's anxiety for more tangibles through that regional plan, for more impacts on the ground. Working closely with UfM, we wish to contribute to apply technical solutions for improving natural resources management, increasing resources use efficiency, raising crop productivity per drop and per kilowatt hour, mobilizing alternative sources to increase the local water budget, and importantly, promoting innovation. We also want to promote employability and entrepreneurship related to such action lines. And we want these to build on and include youth engagement, to mobilize women and to assist those most in need. The harsh socioeconomic impacts of the COVID crisis have reminded us and will remind us for many months to come that inequality is another pandemic that we must address head on and aspire to eradicate. For these, we need to utilize all possible operational partnerships, reaching far beyond our own regular context. The water, energy, food ecosystems nexus and the water employment migration agendas are excellent vehicles for doing so exactly that way, simply because this is the only way for them to succeed. We should continue building such key collaborations with our financing partners, and we are thankful for long-standing synergies, such as with SIDA, the unique supporter of regional water cooperation in Middle East and North Africa. Peter Lundberg of SIDA, thank you for your trust. We're eager to explore more collaborations like with the Green Climate Fund, standing true to the demand expressed by countries to UfM and GWP Med to facilitate capacitating water ministries and NDAs and assisting them in exploring opportunities with international climate financiers for transformative climate resilient water projects. I'm so glad to see this work advancing, and I would like to reassure you that GWP's global climate team stands ready to further support your efforts. The Global Water Partnership through GWP Mediterranean contributes now for more than a decade to UfM's endeavors for sustainable water resources management in the region. Dear Ambassador Kamel, we are fully committed to our partnership and to technically assisting UfM in making real its water agenda and financial strategy for the benefit of its member states. Let me warmly, in closing, thank you all for your attention and wish you a very productive meeting today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica, for this great remarks and commitment toward implementing the UfM water agenda. Without his guidance, without his leadership, without his solid commitment during the pandemic and after, I am very pleased to introduce His Excellency Nasser Kamel. Without his support, we are not here. Really, thank you, Ambassador Nasser Kamel, and the floor is yours. You are the owner of the process.
Very much. Well, allow me to start by thanking our co-presidency, Minister Ali. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mu'taz, and allow me to start by thanking our co-presidency, Minister Ali Subh, for his very insightful remarks, and our partners from the European co-presidency at DG Energy, and my dear friend Enrique Trotman from DG NEAR for their very useful and to the point introduction of the subject matter. And also, I take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to our partners in SIDA and for the Swedish government for their continuous and generous support to our water agenda, and our strategic partner and GWP Mediterranean for their lasting partnership and technical assistance. Water resource management in the Mediterranean has always been quite a challenging sector. And to be honest, with the MEDEC report on climate change and with the deteriorating natural condition, the problematic is complicated even much further. And with the development of our economies in the South, we need more water in places where this resource is not available. Hence, water governance is important. It is improving, but it needs to be further attuned to the needs and the emerging challenges. And it needs more financing, be it from the public sector, the donor community, and also, and more importantly, I would say in the future, from the private sector, from the investment side of things. Governments clearly state the need for regional cooperation and demand more action at the regional level to assist them in tackling the priority they face in this sector. The UfM is striving as much as it can to foster this regional cooperation in close partnership with the whole stakeholder that we deal with, being government, regional institution, international organization, our development partners, in order to deliver results. In this endeavor, we have to admit, and as the previous speaker have mentioned, that the COVID-19 crisis has complicated our task and also proved the link between health and access to safe water and hygiene. This crisis also has proved the risk of water-related inequalities, which are great, particularly for the more vulnerable population. Implementing water efficiency and intensifying efforts to improve the good chemical, quantitative, and ecological health of all waters can increase, of course, water availability for all users and contribute to enhancing environmental health. Improved water governance and sustainable financing instruments contribute in the same direction, of course. All this should be prioritized in the post-COVID recovery plans. We're talking about the new Green Deal being the motto of the recovery, to build back better, and there is no place where the investment is important than the water sector. We have to strive together for a sustainable development of this very precious commodity. It is one of these unique times in history that an unprecedented crisis provides us an opportunity to build better, as you rightly said. We at the UfM, we have established strategies and plans with the help of our partners, of course. But what we need now is to focus on implementing those strategies and plans. We may need to revisit some of them due to the current circumstances, but I'm a true believer that most of them remain valid and applicable. So what we need to do together is to deliver tangible results for our citizens and for our environment. Looking at your work, I see that the thematic area and the financial strategy of the UfM water agenda can be of great assistance in your endeavor, particularly the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus, and also the water employment migration agendas. All of those can contribute to provide solution through such recovery investment, including with a focus, of course, on gender and youth. We call for enhanced operational partnership to make this happen. Today, we need this more than ever, first with our prime beneficiary, which are our member states, of course, and then the widespread range of institutions and stakeholders active in the region in this field. And also, we need the help of our development partners, the likes of CEDA that is doing a lot. We need the IFCs to be engaged. We need also the GCF, GEF, and all UN agency working in the field. And of course, other bilateral agency like GIZ, IFD, ADA, and of course, more from our strategic partner in this endeavor, which is CEDA. Last, we need also the engagement of the private sector. We need to make investing in this sector or the return on investment in this sector more apparent and clear. And that will need lots of work on the governance side of things. We need all of those, and we stand ready as the Secretariat of the UfM to help achieve our common goal for safe and for ensuring the sustainability of this extremely precious resource. I will end my remark by thanking all of you for being with us today and apologizing for taking longer than expected in terms of my intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nasser Kamel. Your remarks will be taken on board and we will always follow your guidance. Now I give the floor for my colleague, Mr. Vangalis, in order to
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Al-Motaz. Your Excellencies, your vision and guidance inspired us all. Already there are a few good announcements and even commitments put forward, and even some suggestions on how UfM can go ahead. With this, let me turn into Mr. Isidro Gonzalez Afonso, Deputy Secretary General for the Union for the Mediterranean, in getting us into the setting the scene session.
Hello, good morning. I wasn't sure you could listen to me, but then now I have managed to activate my microphone. Welcome to all the speakers and the participants to this very important and very timely event in this very particular and very difficult situation that the whole world, not only the Mediterranean region, is living and is going through. Now we are in some part of the, well, in most of the Mediterranean region, most of the countries are coming out of the confinement. We're going back little by little back to normal. And in this agenda of new normality, we have to put water issues in a very high, in a very high position, because it is very important. That's why it is so timely that we are meeting here. I will be extremely brief because of what I want to hear, you all want to hear is our panelists. We would like to, the aim of this meeting will be, and you have it in the content note, to take a stock of the actual situation, the implications for the region, for the world of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to see how we can continue implementing the UfM water policy framework for actions for 2030. We should not forget that we are struggling to get not only this agenda, but also the SDGs and the Agenda 2030, and we shouldn't avoid that because of the pandemic we will turn down or we will put aside these main objectives and these main actions. Also, we aim to discuss and agree on regional priority actions that can complement and help what the countries individually have already done. This will be one of the main aims of this meeting, to see if we can come up with ideas that could help us to coordinate and to launch a common response in the Mediterranean region. We would like also to see, to coordinate with the European Union, and especially with its recently launched European Green Deal, was launched in December last year, and we hope that because of the pandemic, this European Green Deal, which is so welcome and so timely, will not suffer. We hope it will be respected. Most of it will be respected. These are the messages we're receiving from Brussels, and we are celebrating that. So we would like to hear some comments on that. For that, we will have now Andrew Murphy from the DG Environment, who will elaborate on that, on how the European Green Deal will be implemented and how it could be affected by the pandemic. We also aim with this meeting to struggle the coordination between the UfM water agenda and the work of the European Commission, and especially taking into account, as I say, the European Green Deal. We will also have our Managing Director for Water, Almotaz Abadi, who will elaborate on the UfM water agenda and financial strategy. There has been a lot of work done already on this. We had our latest ministerial meeting in 2017, which approved this agenda, a very ambitious agenda. We are working more and more on the financial aspects and the financial strategy of water in the Mediterranean. We had an important meeting on this last month of December in Rome, which was, I think, very relevant and in which we got very important conclusions. So Almotaz will enlighten us on this. And our UfM technical assistant team leader, Antti Bruma, will make make some comments on what has been the response in the Mediterranean region to the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been many webinars, many online seminars, and many initiatives. And overall, we can say that the Mediterranean region has not remained passive, has not remained quiet. All the contrary, has been very active in proposing responses, in proposing a common strategy for the coming future and for the immediate future. So I pass the floor without further ado to Almotaz. Almotaz, please welcome. We're listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General Isidro, for this sharing us. We are pleased to introduce to you, many of you know the process toward establishing the UfM Water Policy Framework of Action 2030, which include the UfM Water Agenda, the technical work that mentioned by His Excellency Nasser Kamel and our partner organization, including Water, Energy, Food Ecosystem Nexus, as well as Water Employment Migration, Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, as well as the last one, which is the most important one, water and the climate change, which is absolutely a place where we build resilience and enhance channeling of funds for the Mediterranean region to efficiently manage the water sector while responding to the climate change challenges. With this, I would like to remind us about the process that we had led. It seemed that our company, they're not showing my presentation, but I will share it maybe from my side. So the process started as you know, in UfM ministerial meeting in Malta, the Malta Declaration, Valletta Declaration in 2017, April, where the UfM ministers had mandated remandated the water expert group in order to work together into a policy framework of action. The process started by developing the thematic work agreement. Here, when we talk about the agreement, we are talking about the UfM way of agreement. That means the technical ministry in charge here in the Ministry of Environment or Water endorsed, and then we have the blessing and the endorsement of the political leaders of the UfM processes, which include UfM senior official meeting, where from that time until December 2019, we've been following their guidance and implementing and developing further the UfM water agenda. This process, we call it a living document. There were no document that is a rigid living document to reflect the urgent need of the Mediterranean country, as well as to keep the ownership of our member state. So all work had been developed by the member state with little support from us as a secretariat, guiding and making some funding available in order to ensure rich content of the different thematic area. and while doing so, to respond to our main objective as an organization, first enhancing the regional cooperation and enhance the exchange of knowledge, as well as to implement a project with tangible and variable geometry results, such as desert, such as gas desalination facility, such as the water employment migration, and other issues tackling the governance and financing aspect in the Mediterranean. At this stage, as said by my colleague Isidro, the aim today is to see how the UfM water agenda to be synchronized with the current development at the European Union, which is the European Green Deal, as well as how to envisage a way forward in order to implement our UfM water agenda and respond to aftermath of COVID-19, which require us to follow out-of-the-box approaches and to see how the water sector will remain always on the center of any recovery plan to sustain it and to make it contributing to the health. As you know, as you see from every single country, that water was the first to fight this pandemic. And the most important phase for us is how to put the water sector, the sustainable water sector, into the wheel of the economic development, and how to help assist other sectors to create jobs and to enhance the socio-economic situation in the Mediterranean, in the UfM region, and not to forget our main objective as an organization is to do it while cooperating, while figuring out the best approaches that our member state had achieved, and to avoid any failure that could not be replicated, but aiming to contribute to the global development agenda. This is why we are not forgetting our original mandate to take the Mediterranean country into the sound and efficient water management to achieve sustainable development goal number 6 and other relevant goals. So with this living document will be updated. Many of the recommendations on the UfM financial strategy and the water policy framework of action, especially the WIFI, the water energy food ecosystem nexus, and water employment are a solution, but we need to see how we can implement them together with your guidance, with your support, without having the financial resources for it. Also, we cannot do it without ensuring that these policy recommendations to be implicated at national level. Also, we cannot do it. So it's not us who will be responsible in this. It's you as a member state, you as a organization working into the sector. The process will continue even the pandemic. And now, as you see that we are continuing our progress into the implementation and development of different chapter and different biannual work plan for the future. And after this meeting, we will have hopefully that we will endorse the work plan, and in accordance to what we had been presented to our co-presidency, we still follow based on the scenario that business come to usual by October, hopefully, so that we will continue the physical meeting. As you can see here, we are planning some important milestone to be done. Otherwise, work on the development of the UfM water agenda will continue, and we are flexible to adapt ourselves into the new requirement to respond to this pandemic and to be contributing to the GDP of the region and our member states. With this, I would like to thank you very much, Isidro, and give you back the floor.
Now I can speak. Sorry, this is not so quick. Thank you, Almotas. Very interesting your comment, your presentation. Now we pass the floor to Anthi Bruma. Please, so we expect you to talk about the responses in the Mediterranean to the pandemic. You are welcome, Anthi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Isidro. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really excited, as probably most of you, to be part of this virtual meeting of our Mediterranean and continue working together with you for our common challenges and solutions. With this presentation, I would like to provide some reflections on a literature review regarding water and COVID-19 responses in the Mediterranean that was prepared by Ms. Marion Karam, the communications expert of our technical assistance program. I remind that the lit review and the infographics document were shared with you yesterday, and they will remain available at the UfM and GWP Med websites. So, soon after the pandemic broke out, it became obvious to all of us that the water sector would be gravely impacted and would actually be at the front line of the crisis. And we're talking actually about a sector that is already in trouble. I remind that in the September 2018 synthesis report on the Sustainable Development Goal 6, the finding was that we are actually not on track, that 3 in 10 people still lack access to safely managed drinking water services, and 6 in 10 people still lack access to safely managed sanitation facilities. Not to mention the dire situation in our region, where 180 million people are considered water poor, and our region figuring quite high in the water scarce countries in the world. With this consideration and with this emphasis on, on water, we need to look at things a little bit more carefully. The provision of safe water, sanitation, and hygiene conditions are essential to protecting human health during all infectious disease outbreaks, including the current COVID-19. So what is the presence of the virus in water and wastewater? In the April interim guidance report, the World Health Organization confirmed that the virus has not been detected in drinking water supplies in surface or groundwater sources. It is inactive, it is likely to inactivate in treated water. And although it may remain, it may survive up to 2 or 3 days in hospital wastewater or domestic sewage, it is not actively spreading through wastewater. What about quantities? Up to now, we use 2 liters of water on average for a single hand washing. If we apply, and when we apply the sanitary measures that the tackling of the pandemic requires, 9 to 12 additional liters are required per day per person. So we're not talking about only a 2-fold or 3-fold increase in water consumption. Plus, the lockdown situation had a significant impact on increasing the water demand, with overuse of water having led already countries to water shortage and scarcity. With regards to healthcare and WASH, safely managed WASH services are critical to limit the spread of the virus, and water in hospitals and health facilities is a key component in tackling the pandemic. What are we doing in terms of protection and prevention? There are several guidance documents. Let us refer to the series of the technical briefs on water, sanitation, and hygiene that the World Health Organization and UNICEF have provided that can be of relevance also to water and sanitation providers, with several elements that we can all utilize. And also that to stress that wastewater surveillance operations are being conducted around the world in order to assist with monitoring the transmission of the virus among the communities, while data collected from the wastewater treatment plants allow authorities to better estimate the spread, considering that the levels of testing across people is not so wide. So what is happening further to the international level? In the Mediterranean region, we have been all mobilized and dedicated human and financial resources. The UfM Secretariat has been engaged with its partners to reflect on these issues and seek for tangible and implementable solutions, notwithstanding the initiative together with the Mediterranean Water Institute regarding this series of brainstorming sessions on the way that COVID-19 has impacted the WASH sector. We will hear more about it during the water agenda segment, and also tomorrow during the looking forward or the forward-looking part on the day after. Importantly, there have been a set of recommendations, like a menu of solutions, if you like, including concrete actions to mitigate secondary impacts and future resilience to similar epidemics. It is important to continue providing financial support, adequate financial support to water and sanitation utilities, given that they are at the front run of the tackling of the pandemic. Continue providing targeted technical assistance to governments to design and implement the emergency response and the recovery plans that they're putting together. Ensure that the financial support to the beneficiaries reaches out to the poorest segments and to the marginalized groups. And finally, ensuring the viability of critical supply chains, considering the lockdown and the import-export restrictions. The European Commission has remained a steady supporter in this whole process, and part of its emergency response action, 2.8 billion euros have been provided to support research, health, and water systems. There has been more, the recently announced Team Europe, additional 3 billion for the neighborhood, the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, the EU Green Deal, and the recovery plan that we're going to hear about afterwards. So steadily, next to the, to the solutions. A couple of things in order to close. It is important to engage the local communities, the local population, by raising awareness about WASH practices, and it is important to have accurate information and also ensure accessibility for all to this accurate information. Finally, during the lockdown, what has become quite widespread is a solidarity that we have witnessed, I think, all of us on different occasions. Sustainability has also been highlighted by different actors, and a sustainable response to COVID-19 crisis needs to emphasize water and sanitation and focus on green and circular economy. Having as a framework program, Water, Energy, Food Nexus is an integral part of this model, as it ensures an efficient use of natural resources and limits environmental degradation. We're going to have the chance to hear more about it in the upcoming session. Also, the cooperation with the private sector is required, along with contingency funding plans and long-term investments, including blended financing alternatives. A change in consumers' behavior is also expected. In the aftermath of this global crisis, we have already observed the changes in our political economies, and the outcome of the recovery phase will really and deeply depend on our ability to rebuild a sustainable and equitable society. And with that, let me leave you and urge you to share, to go through and reach the elite review and forward and continue furthering this discussion. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you, Afi. Very interesting what you presented to us. Thank you so much. I can see that even in our chat, there is an online interesting debate. This is very good. It shows that we are being interactive. This is the aim of the meeting. Okay, so now we pass the floor to Andrew Murphy to talk us about the European Green Deal. We are a bit out of schedule already, but I think this issue is very interesting. And the big question, Andrew, please, how the European Green Deal is going to be affected by the pandemic. Thank you so much and welcome.
Okay, thank you. First of all, my name is Andrew Murphy, and many of you will recognize me from a few years ago. So I'd just like to start by saying what a pleasure it is to actually be back here in the Mediterranean. I was here at the beginning of the UfM, and it's nice to see that, that things are still moving on, and it's good to see some of the old faces that I know. I just also like to say, before I get going, that the slides that I'm about to show, they've been reduced down to try to make it 7 minutes, but I'll make them available after the meeting, so don't worry too much about taking the details. And a final point, because I know from working in the Mediterranean, as I'm going to have to be quick, I'm going to have to be very Anglo-Saxon, and I know that sometimes comes across as rude, so I'm apologizing in advance to anybody if I'm a little bit blunt. But this first slide I've put up here because this shows the 6 priorities of the Commission that's now in place and will be in place until 2024. And the reason for putting that slide up is to show that the European Green Deal, from the beginning of the Commission, was highlighted as one of the priorities. If you compare that to the previous Commission, where environment was not explicitly mentioned in any of the 10 priorities, it means that we're starting on this occasion from a fairly strong point. And it also means that for the next 5 years, we have a degree of continuity and a degree of assurance that environment will be taken seriously. Another point to underline is that since the COVID crisis hit, our president has on numerous occasions reiterated that the European Green Deal will be at the center of any recovery efforts. So the recovery efforts that we will be supporting will be green recovery efforts. The second slide really outlines in very broad terms what the Green Deal will do. But what I'd like to draw your attention to is the quote at the bottom there, because I think that's a very important point that we like to make and we need to really press home, is that the European Green Deal is a growth strategy. So it's basically linking the economics with the environment. And I think, again, as we're in the middle of a coronavirus crisis, there'll be many calls to push on with the economic recovery and leave the environment behind. But the European Green Deal, if it's in there at the center, will make sure that environmental concerns are at the center of the economic recovery. And so what we find for once is that actually normally we might be outside the room pushing to try to get in. From the beginning in this commission, we're inside the room and the other people are going to have to pull us out. So I think that's a very different and very strong position to be in. This slide here really gives the elements of the European Green Deal. And I'm not going to run through them all because we don't have time. We're also going to be talking further on in the meeting about some of the more detailed elements. But what you can see from this slide is that the various themes, the various priorities, water is not specifically mentioned in any of them. However, water is an underlying theme and it is linked to many of them. So, for example, the climate ambition, the zero pollution ambition, the restoration of biodiversity, these are all things which will implicitly involve the work that you're doing here. I'm going to skip through some of these slides because I'd originally intended to pick out a couple of those themes and go into a little bit more detail, but I'm not really sure that the time allows it. But I've picked out a couple of themes there which I think are perhaps more relevant to water. And my colleague tomorrow, when she makes the presentation on the linkages between the Green Deal and the work of the Water Group, will probably go into that in more detail. But these are a couple of the key ones. Circular economy, I think, has been under the previous commission a priority and is continuing under this commission. We now have a new circular economy action plan to replace the previous one, which came to an end last year. And it focuses on slightly different areas, those areas that were not necessarily addressed in that first action plan, such as textiles, construction, and electronics. And of course, plastics is highly relevant here in the Mediterranean context. That will continue to be a priority. Biodiversity is increasing in profile. It has a clear link to climate change, and we have the upcoming conference of the parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So this will be an issue which is prominent over the next 12 months, 18 months. And again, I think water is in there. And zero pollution ambition, it goes without saying that the water work is extremely relevant in that context, because water pollution is one of the three that's up there mentioned: air, water, and soil. The Commission did back in January, when the Green Deal was launched, put together plans for mobilizing the funding. These dated from January, but at the moment, the intention is to continue on. There have been the emergency measures that came into place with the coronavirus, things like the Team Europe back in April, but again, we don't have a lot of time for that. There is a background document which was distributed, and there'll be a little bit more detail in there, pointing you to other places where you can get more information. That's all well and good. It's a European Green Deal, and you might well say, well, yeah, it's great for the Europeans. It's aimed at Europe. Where do we come into it? Well, the deal recognizes that if the EU wants to achieve some of its aims and ambitions, it cannot do it alone. It will have to do it by working with its international partners. And one of the things I'd just like to point out in the European Green Deal is that the partners of the neighboring countries to the EU are specifically mentioned as key partners. So Again, for the work of this group, I think that's very significant. The Mediterranean, as we've said before, is clearly an example where both sides have to work together to achieve their aims. And that is, I think, will give us some assurance for the future that the work of this group will continue to be of importance to the EU. And I think at that point, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I just maybe reiterate the points that I made there in the final seconds. European Green Deal will be a central priority of this Commission. That gives us a period of certainty. It is a growth strategy, and it will be central to the recovery. And the international element of the European Green Deal will place a special emphasis on the countries of the Mediterranean and a special emphasis on the neighbouring countries. And I'm afraid I've now run over, so I'll stop there and hand the microphone back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew Murphy. Very interesting presentation. I think for because we are already out of schedule, out of time, I pass the floor back to Vangelis. So Vangelis, please, you take the floor. I think we have a video now before a little break in the next session. So Vangelis, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Isidro. Yes, we do have a video right now for the next 10 minutes. We were just having a discussion with moderators whether we should skip that. But let's go for this 10 minutes break using the video. This is going to be on climate change impacts. It reflects the first scientific report on climate and environment in the Mediterranean, elaborated by MEDEC, UNEP, Blue Plan, UfM, and supported also by SIDA. So let's go to that, and let's be back in 10 minutes sharp. So let's say 4:30 or 3:30. Using Central European time.
The weather sets new records. Climate scientists say such heat waves are likely to become the new normal in the coming years.
Extreme heat wave, and across the continent, records are being broken.
Have been put into boats and moved.
Partout, les phénomènes météo extrêmes se multiplient.
ويعد تغير المناخ أحد أكبر الأخطار التي تهدد التنمية على مستوى العالم.
The extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon.
Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Thank you very much. See you in 5 minutes. Okay, good, no problem. Yes. Oh. Okay, I think we can start the meeting, Bengales.
Yes, ready. I hope you had a cup of coffee or tea.
Yes, yes.
And you're getting back, and Al-Motaz has put on his mask.
Yeah, because I the rule and regulation. I was talking to my colleagues, so I need to be,
Okay.
we need to be a good example. Yeah, ciao, ciao.
Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us not waste these 4 minutes, if you agree. So we are all online. So let me introduce this session. Actually, it is a very challenging one because we have 18 speakers over 1 hour. And at the end, we will have time for some short interventions. Just as a reminder, please keep your microphones muted. And please, at the end of the session, towards the end of the session, please raise your hand if you wish to make an intervention. We would like to give priorities into the UfM member states that they are not taking the floor over this next hour on the thematic session, and of course to partner organizations that wish to contribute. Now, the session's objective are 3. The first one is to provide updates on the work of the 4 thematic priorities of the UfM water agenda: the nexus, the water employment, migration, WASH, and climate change. Secondly, to go deeper into the nexus and to the WEM task forces and to look at elements of the framework programs. These are the 2 most advanced. And last, but definitely not least, to inform, to get information by strategic and financial partners on their activities in the region towards enabling further synergies and collaborations. So with this, let us go directly into the first panel that is on the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus. Let me ask Ms. Mona Faki, the water director of the Lebanese Ministry of Energy and Water. Hello, Mona, to make the introductory remarks.
Hello, how are you? Thanks very much. Actually, the opening of this meeting was very interesting, and it was very rich from the European Commission, from the UfM, from the agencies. Thanks very much, really. To save time, actually, I'm glad to introduce the session of this important UfM consultation in my capacity as chair of the UfM Task Force on Water, Energy, Food Ecosystem Nexus. It is very encouraging to witness such a great engagement by governments, stakeholders, and donors in our joint work, especially under the COVID-19 restrictions. We know that in several Mediterranean countries, the nexus sectors continue working in silos with limited consideration of the interrelation and mutual impacts. When it comes to investments and trade-offs, energy and agriculture are traditionally stronger players than water and the environment within a national development process. The UfM Nexus agenda should assist countries striking an optimum among the sectors' objectives while strengthening the water position in the national development agenda and financing. In this, we should not lose the sight of dimensions of human rights, gender, youth, jobs, migration, as well as hydro diplomacy as a tool of great added value. We had the opportunity to thoroughly discuss these and define way to forward at the first Nexus roundtable in MENA and wider Mediterranean in November 2018 in Beirut, organized by the Lebanese Ministry of Energy and Water. UfM Global Water Partnership met with support by SIDA and GEF. Actually, how can we make this happen? Governance, partnerships, and investments are key ingredients for witnessing progress. These will only become real if we increase our understanding, knowledge of the nexus stakes, if we agree through dialogue on the common ways forward, if we take collective action towards achieving impacts, if we mobilize financing, which is very important, including by utilizing what we have agreed at the UfM financial strategy. The COVID crisis had put a temporary halt on our progress on this. Actually, the crisis makes everything greatly more challenging it seems that our societies and economies will suffer for long and from its impacts, but this should make us only more determined for solutions. Today, these are needed more than ever. We have discussed thoroughly context of the UfM water agenda. It is high time to go to practical and tangible. This is very important. We are happy to see the Wi-Fi Nexus framework program and its synergies with water employment migration ready to launch pilot interventions in our countries. We look for their success and quick upscaling. We are thankful to the development partners like Sweden, Austria, JEF, and European Commission, and its Joint Research Center, UN agencies, GIZ, the PRIMA, for their support. We wish to explore more options for assistance, like with Green Climate Fund through the UfM Global Water Partnership. And we look to concrete regional and national benefits out of this. Let us conduct this short session briefly, hearing from partners. Most importantly, let us stay focused on implementation and their concrete outcomes. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mona, for your introductory words. Let me go directly into the presentation, the main presentation, asking my colleague Dimitris Falouchos, Deputy Regional Coordinator in GWP Med, to address us.
Vangelis, dear colleagues, everyone, partners, thank you for the very nice and well-organized meeting until now. Let me go directly into the presentation, sharing my screen on this presentation on the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus. Let me reiterate on the aims and objectives. The aim to enhance sustainable use of natural resources, to achieve sustainable development goals under the Agenda 2030 in the UfM region. The objective, to introduce the water energy food ecosystem nexus approach, to catalyze action for its mainstreaming, finance and implementation in the UF member states and national local level and the UfM region. Let me remind you, or let me update you on what was the progress since the previous WEG 10 in June 2009. What, when, who, the third Southeastern Europe Nexus Stakeholders Roundtable was organized in Western Balkans, more specifically in Tirana, Albania. The third of a series, the work in Western Balkans goes back several years. A media training on wetlands nexus, back to back with the Parliamentarians Roundtable in December 2019 in Morocco. Northwest Sahara Aquifer System Nexus Assessment, this is advanced, very soon will be finalized. It is part of the work in Northwest Sahara Aquifer System to assist the countries that share the aquifer moving ahead in the sustainable management of the aquifer. We have a series of transboundary dialogues that are being supported by Nexus Assessment in the Dream basins, transboundary basins in the Western Africa, and the JERC Atlas of Web and Nexus Mediterranean. It is advanced, but you will hear more about that in a bit. The activities I mentioned are supported by different donors, among them the GEF, Germany, Austria, the MAVA, SIDA, etc. This is a slide just to remind those that have been with us, have been part of this process for long, and to introduce the way of thinking and approach to those that are for the first time joining us. Many partners work in the Mediterranean on different areas of the nexus, using different entry points, etc. So there are ongoing activities and there are plans for more activities. Until now, the UfM has been the framework providing and the way providing the glue so all these partners come together for joint action, and more partners can join in. And the idea is rather to streamline and synergize, rather overlapping, for the benefit of the countries, of course. The previous WEG meeting provides specific guidance. First, to focus on tangibles, and second, to operationally merge the nexus and the water employment migration agendas within the UfM framework program. This will be done under 2 action lines. The first one will be in the small medium scale, nexus in the coastal, urban, and rural areas. Prioritize action planning and investment. Implement local pilot nexus interventions and find ways to upscale them. And of course, novel financing instruments will be central in this regard. Promote employability and entrepreneurship for youth and women. This is something that we will follow the prioritization and investment as a natural follow-up. Facilitate public, donor, and private investments, and promote knowledge sharing. And we're happy to report back that to the countries that guided do something, golden tangibles, we're actually started doing something. But us, partners, everyone in the Med. First, the regional level, nexus dialogues, capacity building, stakeholders engagement, underpinned by gender mainstreaming. It's actually happening as we speak, and there are planned activities as well. At the local level, we are, or we will be active pretty soon in Albania, Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Morocco. How? Depending on the needs with specific tools, local nexus assessments leading to strategies and action plans, demonstration projects to create the action necessary so as we have the linkages with employability and youth, but also to see what really functions, but to feed in and to address the needs identified by the nexus assessments, so as to have specific things be planned and to have the action plans first, and then the financing of the action plans to recognize and the investments to be in place. As previously explained, the employability, the entrepreneurship are actually integral parts of the whole thinking, and as it should be. The second action line will be in a large scale, will be about nexus wastewater treatment plants. It's about understanding the opportunities for private investment, assist the development of investment in pipeline, facilitate related pre-feasibility studies, of course, capacity building, engagement of stakeholders, and knowledge sharing. All these, of course, are under development, and you will hear pretty soon on the developments. It was an omission of mine to thank, I'll go to the previous slide, to thank those that make this action capable, of course, all the partners that are involved, but this would not be possible without the involvement of Sweden, the involvement, the financing of the GEF, and this is being done with UfM, but in synergy with the United Nations Environment Program. The WP Med has been facilitating and has been the technical advisor for these activities along with other partners. What's coming next in terms of events? Of course, unfortunately, until now, online events. We're going to have a GWP Med and UfM webinar on technical solutions, Nexus in practice. That would be in the first or second week of July. And we're going to have the UfM Nexus Task Force meeting, again, the second or third week of July after the practice webinar. The first one will be used to share experiences or on a related Med experience, of course, on the ground, exchange on the challenges faced and practical responses applied. On the second would be to present more detail the UfM with a Nexus Framework Program and inform on the works of regional organizations, and of course, 6 synergies. Vangeli, thank you very much. The microphone back to you.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. Hopefully it has provided insights on when we stand and what we have been doing over the last almost 1 year since the last WEG. Now, let's go into short reflections by financial and strategic partners. Let me announce the first 2. So going first to Bernd Gaulik from DG Joint Research Center of the European Commission, followed by Sara Daturi, Environmental Affairs Officer in UNEC. Bernd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, so let me start here my presentation. Okay, so the European Green Deal, in a sense, is the answer which was given to us before the the virus reminded us the question. And indeed, in what we have been doing before all this started was to collect and then create a compendium on the practices on water, energy, food, and the environment nexus in the Mediterranean. And I'm going to present to you very briefly on where we stand and what Dimitris called before the Atlas, which now has become a true gateway to the Mediterranean. So the gateway is a joint effort between the European Commission, the Union for the Mediterranean, and the Global Water Partnership. We present in this publication 37 case studies, which have been evaluated by our experts for their impact, positive impact on the UN SDGs. And they illustrate actually the benefits of the nexus in the Mediterranean. They were selected out of 60 proposals. We are also presenting the past, the present, and the future of the entire region with regards to the Wi-Fi nexus culture and technology. And this is an unprecedented publication which is coming ahead, which had accordingly, of course, also the input and support from numerous organizations like the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the UN Organization for Cooperation in Europe, GIZ, and also the Regional Research Center, EURECAT in Catalonia, and many others, international, regional, and local partners. The publication is going to be available in simultaneously English, Arab, and French, because this is indeed very important to us that we share the knowledge. And it has a very interesting feature of augmented realities with some 120 video and audio clips ensuring full interactivity with the material. Yeah, and basically, we have also agreement with a very famous pop band which deliver us in pro bono the music. I'm for the moment for contractual negotiations going on. I'm not allowed to tell you the name of the band, but what I can do is to reveal you the cover of the painting, which has been chosen here. It is a woman symbolizing the nexus, and you see that it is built very much on the culture of the olive tree. There are 8 other paintings which will together form part of an exhibition that will wander around the Mediterranean, also with a number of other fancy activities. And I would like to reveal to you now the first ready page of the publication, which shows you a case study in Italy. You see here actually a full evaluation, a narrative in the different languages, the authors of the study, and a lot of content which will be activatable by using your smartphone once the publication has been published, explaining to you why this is a very good study. There will be gaming effects interacting with you, so that you can experience yourself. You will have the opportunity for some of the case study to literally beam yourself to the site and using the 360-degree image technology to have an experience, and eventually also access videos and further explanations. There's also a whole scientific process behind that, using dashboards and sustainability charts, which will be shared through the Wi-Fi Nexus dialogue platforms, thus catapulting this activity actually in the forefront of the global Wi-Fi Nexus community as well. In this moment we are, and let me close here, we are also negotiating rollouts and possible plans to replicate this, and we are in touch currently with the World Bank to do so. And I stop here in order not to take too much away from your time. Thank you very much for your attention indeed.
Bernd, thank you so much. This is an impressive piece of work, not only on contents, but also on presentation, on the format, very innovative. Let me turn immediately to Sarah from UNICE.
Hello everyone. So good afternoon to all of you, and I'm Sara Datturi from the Secretary of the Water Convention hosted by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and it is a great pleasure to be with you today. I would like to congratulate the UfM for its central role in supporting countries of the Mediterranean region to enhance regional cooperation towards sustainable and integrated water management, in particular in these difficult times. Promoting an integrated and intersectoral approach to water management in the Mediterranean region is a common priority of action under the UfM Water Agenda and the UfM Water Policy Framework for Action 2030, and also for the 2019-2021 program of work of the Water Convention. The event, jointly organized by the UfM and the Water Convention Secretariat in October 2019 in Geneva, highlighted the synergy and the complementarity of activities promoting the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus approach, implemented under both frameworks. The specificity of the work of the WFE nexus carried out under the Water Convention is its transboundary nature. For example, the Water Convention supported the assessment of the WFE nexus in Northwestern Sahara Aquifer System, together with GWMAT and OSS, in close cooperation with concerned authority from the aquifer sharing countries, Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia, as well as with the NWSAS consultation mechanism. Through a participative approach, the nexus assessment made it possible to identify and elaborate a nexus solution for the basin, with regard to the modernization of agriculture and also the increase of its efficiency, viability, and sustainability, the preservation of groundwater resources, and the rationalization of water, the sustainable development of energy sector, and the integration of renewable energy in agriculture and in the water sector. The solution described in particular the action to be taken at the policy level to facilitate the sustainable upscale of small-scale solar irrigation, the valorization of unconventional waters and wastewater, and the broader uptake of sustainable agricultural practices through the coordinated action of different institutions aimed at maximizing synergies and benefit from single investment, and also the reducing trade-off and negative impact from incoherent sectoral policy. Since they have been developed taking into account policy priorities, past experiences, these solutions are high priority and are implementable and can serve as a basis for the development of intersectoral actions plan. The final report will be available soon. Building on the Water Convention's nexus work, and more specifically on the assessment of river basin in Western Balkans, UNECE developed a toolkit for sustainable renewable energy deployment in synergy with water and environment, which is a crucial step in the development of coherent climate mitigation and adaptation plans across sectors and across countries. The COVID-19 pandemic clearly highlighted that one sector alone cannot address such major challenges. Cooperation between sectors is a must, and even now, in the post-crisis context. In the phase of recoveries, effective cooperation can go a long way to improve the effectiveness of the response, as well as to reduce the risk of conflict. In particular, the way shared water resources are used will likely be impacted by the evolution of energy and food market and changes in the production. More than ever, governments will be prioritizing security supply and affordability of these resources to all citizens, including those who are vulnerable. Regional cooperation across sectors during and after the crisis can ensure that this strategy decision come with minimal trade-off and exploit the maximum possible synergies. Applying a nexus approach, therefore, helps ensure a coherent policy response. But the COVID crisis also highlighted the importance of cooperation between countries and mutual assistance. As such, cooperation is also needed for transboundary water resource management. With 60% of global freshwater flow coming from transboundary basins, cooperation of the management of transboundary water resources is a key to ensure timely, sufficient availability of water and adequate quality of provision of safe water, sanitation, and adequate hygiene. Transboundary water cooperation will therefore play a major role for tackling possible impacts of the COVID-19 crisis, including poverty, economic downturn, food and energy insecurity, and political instability. 27 of the UfM member states being already part of the Water Convention, and additional countries from Southern Mediterranean being currently studying possible accession to the Convention, such as Tunisia and Lebanon. The Water Convention provides a legal and intergovernmental framework for peaceful and cooperation management of transboundary water resources. The Task Force on Water, Food, Energy Ecosystem Nexus under the Water Convention provide a global platform to share experiences and intersectoral cooperation in transboundary context. The next meeting will be held on the 22nd and 23 October 2020 and will focus on the Nexus solution and investment building.
Sarah, let me interrupt you, unfortunately.
It's finished. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you. Sorry to do that, but we have to respect the time.
I just
Thank you.
wanted to say about the meeting.
Excellent. So with that, let me turn to Prima, to Mr. Giovanni Staganellini, sorry, to introduce us his comments. You are muted.
Okay. Yeah, just 1 minute. Are you hearing me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Please go
Thank
ahead.
you. So thank you to UfM, to the European Commission, to GWP for organizing this meeting and for inviting Prima to offer its contribution. I bring the greetings and regards by Professor Riccaboni and Mohamed El Shinawi, which are co-chairing the initiative, which is an initiative targeting water, food, and agriculture in a very interlinked way, with a distinctive focus, geographical focus on the Mediterranean area. It also has, the partnership is also characterized by the equal footing principle. It includes the collaboration of 19 countries bordering the Mediterranean area and the European Commission, which is of course a strategic and financial partners for us. The initiative is funding research and innovation projects targeting the 3 areas and also the nexus between these 3 areas. We have funded 83 projects for a total budget of 100 million euro, specifically projects of research and innovation. Among these 83 projects, 27 are in the water sector, and 3 of them have a nexus approach. Interestingly, this aspect of nexus, of focusing on the nexus approach, is progressively taking space within the initiative, and we are progressively increasing the funding on the nexus area. And in fact, both in 2020 and in 2021, the funding is progressively increasing, reaching the 15% of the overall budget. So it is a strategic partnership which is focusing on research and innovation. We have a strong collaboration with DG Research and Innovation within the European Commission, and we are delighted also to be involved in the Nicosia conference on Nexus, which has been rescheduled in spring 2021, together again with UfM and GWP. We have an institutional collaboration with UfM and a specific focus on the Mediterranean area, which is, as the video has shown, specifically affected by many of the challenges we have mentioned before. In this sense, we believe that research and innovation are key drivers in order to have to achieve the goals, the global goals of the Agenda 2030. And we also believe that partnerships are the key strategy, the key elements to have effective results on the ground. In that sense, we are targeting also farmers and innovators. Before has been mentioned the private sector. We want to improve this aspect, including them into the partnership. And it is an honor to be here in the meeting. We have a portfolio of projects, and we believe that, again, research and innovation are key drivers for more sustainable development.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you very much for the impressive work of Prima and your remarks. Nisreen, let me turn to you. Nisreen Laham, advisor for GIZ. Please take attention that there is one screen that has the clock, the counter, so you can follow that for your interventions. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thanks to UfM for the kind invitation to participate in this important meeting. My name is Nisreen Laham. I work for GIZ at the Nexus Dialogue Program as the coordinator of the MENA region. The Nexus Dialogue Program, co-funded by BMZ and the EU and implemented by GIZ, believes that governments will not be able to operate and sustain Nexus projects alone, and the private sector should play a role, as mentioned by Ambassador Nasser Kamel. Hence, we have to look for innovative financing models for WEF Nexus projects. Based on this approach, the Nexus Regional Dialogue in the MENA region, in its first phase, ending up this month, conducted a Nexus action plan with proposed Nexus investment projects and other projects on framework conditions needed for the implementation of the Nexus investment project. This action plan was carried out in collaboration with our partner, the League of Arab States, and with governmental entities, different development agencies, and regional experts. Currently, the Nexus Regional Dialogue is conducting a study on financing strategy for Nexus projects, identifying suitable financing instruments such as funds, grants, loans, equities, and other suitable financing instruments for priority Nexus projects, which have the potential to be financed out of this action plan, which is a portfolio of different Nexus investment projects. In phase 2 of the Nexus Dialogue program from 2020 up to 2023, the program is looking for approaching financing institutions and preparing project proposals for the identified Nexus projects in the action plan to facilitate financing and implementing these projects. This is accompanied by other activities such as regional dialogue. We'll continue with these dialogues and other also capacity building activities and events with implementing a Nexus demonstration project and manifesting the positive impacts of the Nexus approach. In this regard, GIZ is looking for collaboration with UfM and GWP on co-organizing a regional policy dialogue on access to finance for water, energy, food Nexus projects, with the aim of presenting the outcomes of the study I mentioned on financing strategy and instruments and financing instruments for WEF Nexus projects, and presenting some of the projects in the action plan, and engaging the private sector and financing institutions. Of course, this aligns with UfM activity on the WAFE Nexus Task Force, which is organizing Nexus policy dialogues in the Southeast Europe and MENA subregions, potentially leading to Nexus strategies and identification of priority investments. We are looking forward for this collaboration with UfM and with GWP as well, hoping that we come for Nexus projects from concepts and theoretical issues to implementation on ground and having real implemented projects which are feasible projects that can attract the private sector to be part in. And thank you again for UfM and GWP as well.
Nisreen, thank you so much for all the impressive work, and we do look forward in having operational synergies on all this. Let me turn to Céline Dubreuil, Senior Water Expert from Blue Plan, UNEP. Céline?
Do you hear me?
Yes, Céline, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, we thank UfM and the organizer for inviting the United Nations Environment Program Mediterranean Action Plan to this online consultation meeting. Mrs. Tatiana Ema, Deputy Coordinator of UNEP-MAP, apologizes for not being able to attend this meeting, and I'm honored that Plan Bleu is representing UNEP-MAP today. Delivering water, energy and food for all in a sustainable and equitable way while preserving the health of the natural systems is one of the major challenges that the Mediterranean countries face today. Sustainability and security in one sector can only be achieved when synergies and trade-offs are addressed in the two other sectors. In order to fully capture the benefits and synergies under a nexus approach, the development and management choices in the water, energy, and food sectors require enhanced integration at the knowledge, policy, legislative, and institutional levels framework. Contracting parties to the Barcelona Convention committed in the Naples Declaration adopted by the last COP21 in December 2019 to further support this cross-cutting approach through collecting scientific findings in an easily accessible form on behalf of decision makers and through developing transdisciplinary research and intersectoral policies to address climate change. The COVID-19 pandemic we are facing today has provided a stark reminder of the close linkages between the state of the natural environment and ecosystems, human health, and the performance and resilience of our socio-economic systems. In recent years, UNEP-MAP has considered the relationship between environmental conditions and human health as a pressing emerging issue. A whole chapter is dedicated to these issues in the recent report on the state of the environment and development in the Mediterranean, to be released at the end of this year. The key messages of which were approved by the COP21 in Naples. Cooperation between countries is fundamental when facing such crises, and it is necessary for all stakeholders to collaborate and work in a coordinated manner. We think that a more intersectoral collaboration between experts working in the health and environment sectors is needed, and that the health aspect should be more actively integrated in all policies to create safer environments and prevent the spread of diseases. The development of the next medium-term strategy 2022-2027, which will define the vision of the Mediterranean Action Plan and its priorities for the next 6 years, will take into consideration key elements and emerging issues raised during the COVID-19 crisis, hence linking environment to human health. Other key regulatory and policy instruments under development in the current millennium will also address aspects brought up or exacerbated from the COVID-19 crisis, such as the post-2020 SAPBO, the post-2021 regional strategy on ship-based pollution, or the new updated regional plans under the LBS protocols and others. Future activities of UNEP-MAP will focus, among others, on enhancing knowledge for evidence-based policies and supporting efforts of the contracting parties to build back better by further promoting the principles of sustainable consumption and production and circular economy, as well as nature-based solutions. 2020 also marks a new phase in the preparation of the participatory foresight for the Mediterranean at Horizon 2050, led by Plan Bleu. In that context, UNEP-MAP aims to achieve synergies with the UfM Water Policy Framework for Actions 2030 on the basis of the long-standing cooperation between our two organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Celine. This has been very rich in very short time. I sincerely thank you. And let's move immediately into the next session. Almotaz, to you.
Thank you very much, Vangelis. Thank you very much for this great session. I hope that we will copy you and we have another great session. We will go for the next 20 minutes with the discussion on the water employment migration task force and chapter of the UfM Water Policy Framework of Action. As said earlier, this formula of leadership of different chapter and different task force always was our success story. I am very happy that this effort had been always coordinated between the two government of the government of Italy, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as the government of Turkey, one from the North Mediterranean, the other from the South Mediterranean, to bolster cooperation over the important subject matter. So I will leave you with the team leader, Mr. Enrico Granara, Euro-Mediterranean Coordinator, Minister, Potential Minister, and His Excellency is our senior official at the Union for the Mediterranean for his introductory remark. So floor is yours, Ambassador, for 4 minutes.
Thank you so much, Almotaz. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Well, good afternoon to you all. My full appreciation goes to the UfM Secretariat and its Water Agenda partners for this new consultation. I see it as a timely update of the December International Conference that the UfM organized in Rome in early December. We all know that the pandemic on a global scale has been hampering our overall agenda, including our attempts to make progress for a new and much needed water agenda and its financial strategy, also in view of the SDG 6 and the European Green Deal. But finally, we are there discussing policy actions, economic responses, and ways forward in the post-COVID context. As far as Italy is concerned, we have started consulting with our partners at EU political level in order to make sure that the new Green Deal be more in tune with the Mediterranean region as a whole. Also by warning our partners across the Alps that without a thorough Mediterranean dimension, the new Green Deal is doomed to fail. As it has been correctly pointed out by Secretary General Kamel and other previous speakers, the only way forward in this post-COVID-19 context is integration of policies and integration of our economic responses throughout the Mediterranean region. I would like to conclude these brief remarks today by praising the Secretariat for the attention given to the Ponza Prima Med event scheduled to take place in the small Tyrrhenian islands of Ponza, south of Rome, on September 11, 2020, hopefully in person and not only in video. This is where the Italian Network for the Euromed Dialogue, together with the Prima Foundation and other important institutional partners, including the UfM Secretariat itself, will be discussing the main environmental priorities in the region by launching also a new manifest highlighting the common destiny of the different Mediterranean shores. For those who enjoy historical memories, Ponza and the neighboring island of Ventotene are the cradle of the post-war European unity spirit, much in a federalist sense, if you will, dating back to 1941 with the Ventotene Manifesto for a Free Europe. So the idea is to go back to these inspiring highlands for a new manifest. I think in Arabic is Bayan, if I'm correct, Almotaz, extended to the Mediterranean region this time, binding Europe to the other shores for a common destiny. We see this event as a key step on the way to the November summit, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona Declaration. Not only that, our friend Enrico Molinaro, who is also joining the discussion today, will be able to expand on this point, touching upon the concrete actions by the UfM that can follow up in all areas of our common blue economy in times of climate change. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your intervention and for your great guidance for us, as well as also really committing to the time allocated for your good self. We will take a note about what you had said. Bonza is on the way toward the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona Convention. We are coordinating with your team at the ministry and the civil society of Italy in order to advance this important event in Bonza. Now I give the floor for Togba Ibrahim Maden from the Turkish Water Institute to speak on behalf of the the government of Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you, Almatas, and good afternoon to all. And thank you, Union for Mediterranean, Global Water Partnership Mediterranean, and the European Commission for this virtual meeting. It's a great pleasure to see you again. You know, water employment migration is a comprehensive nexus associated with all the goals of the SDG. Especially in the Mediterranean region, there are lots of obstacles regarding this issue. You know, the climate, semi-arid and the arid region, and water scarce region, and migration and the population movement due to the political instability. Also, economic is also fragile due to the political instability, high population of refugees, and especially youth and gender. These are the main issues. Also, employment and education. You remember, as you remember, the last meeting and the workshop, which was held in October 2019. And with the UfM Lab, I think this UfM Lab created an opportunity to collaborate for Union for Mediterranean and the other organizations from regions. In the COVID-19 period and the post-COVID-19, I think the importance of the water management, water network, sanitation come to the forefront. As you know, Turkey is hosting nearly 6 million refugees, and nearly 4 million of them are Syrians. And most of the refugees live in Istanbul. And you know, Istanbul is the most crowded city in Turkey. And I would like to indicate that the most of the COVID-19 case seen in Istanbul, nearly 65%. You know, in Turkey, most of the Syrians access the basic public services, including healthcare and more, and other schools, and also use the waters of the networks. And only the 64 Syrians are now living in the camps area. And you know, the COVID period affect the water consuming and also the employment, also economy, as I said before. And I want to say, in the COVID period, under the coordination of the Turkish Water Institute and with the support of the State of Hydraulic Works, Food and Control GD, Water Management GD, and the Marmara University Environmental Engineering Department, 2 studies are implemented to monitor virus in wastewater and wastewater sludge in Turkey. And I want to say we have 2 publishing, and I can share with you in the chat area. And why wastewater is important, I want to say, because you know, I mentioned before, most of the Syrians are living in Istanbul also. The distribution of the epidemic was followed not only with the blood test, but the wastewater monitoring. And this may allow us to identify the districts and exhibiting may COVID-19 cases, but under high risk. Continuous monitoring of wastewater for COVID-19 may provide an early warning signs for an epidemic starts. And why sludge is important? Because we use sludge as soil conditions in agriculture and send to landfill disposal. I finished it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Togba, for your intervention. And as stated by our Secretary General and many of the high-level interventions, that the UfM water agenda taking into consideration the water sector as a bolster for employment and job creation. As said by Peter from SIDA, that UfM Secretariat with GWB, they are developing this program to be dedicated for the Mediterranean with the support of SIDA as well as the European Union. So I will give the floor for Mr. Vangalis Constantinos, the CEO of the GWB Med, in order to brief us about this program that we are preparing together to implement the UfM water agenda in the Mediterranean. So, you.
Thank you very much, Almotaz. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I will go quickly through the water employment migration status and where we stand as for next steps. Here is a short reminder just showing the cross linkages between water insecurity and employment and migration, and just a reminder of the aim and the objective of this thematic area that has been agreed among the countries under the leadership of Italy and Turkey. Here is a brief account of events and steps taken after WEG 10 in Brussels in June 2019. During the Water Week, the dedicated session that took place in August in Stockholm, the WEM Lab 2 that was organized in November 2019 in Istanbul. It was mentioned by, of course, by TUCBA in close collaboration with Sven, and together at the same time the organization of the fourth task force meeting that took place back in back. Last but not least, based on contributions and guidance received by these events, the advancement of the WEM framework program. Now, again, a reminder of the way that the framework programs are set up, not only for WEM, but for all thematic areas. So in this modular approach, bringing together contributions as parts of a bigger puzzle. For the WEM framework program, we have established a theory of change since long, and we have advanced all the contents. Just as a reminder, again, we are looking in facilitating WEM action and policy making together with investment prioritization. We make the linkage as we have been guided on with the Nexus pilot interventions. Of course, the objective is to promote the employability and entrepreneurship, looking in particular to youth and women, and making linkage to the Nexus sectors, looking for investments of all kinds and sharing the knowledge. Now, again, as was mentioned before for the Nexus, the guidance was very clear at the WEG 10 meeting: go for tangibles, operationally merge as possible the Nexus and the WEM. And here is how we envision that through areas that intersect. Now, go into detail. You will find also this in document number 5 that has been shared in the background material. We are looking to prove the concept of the Nexus and WEM interlinkages, merging or linking the intersection of these two framework programs. And there are 3 action lines that have been prioritized. One is to implement Nexus or non-conventional water resources pilot technical solutions, and of course to prioritize further such interventions. This is line 1 or output 1. How to do that? Through interventions to increase natural resource use efficiency, to increase productivity per drop and kilowatt, to mobilize alternative sources for local water budget, to promote innovation and technology transfer. So the technical part, the technical work. Number 2 is to assist employment and entrepreneurship opportunities that are linked with this demonstration. So people that get engaged into this have hands-on experience, and we can do that through capacity building on Nexus and employability, monitoring of mentoring business courses, capacity building for gender issues, the range of gender issues, and sharing regional experiences. And the third component is to increase and share knowledge and to promote outreach. We have discussed about the need, and there is an agreement about the need of a large-scale WEM assessment that would look Africa and Asia as the areas of migration origin, getting to the Mediterranean with particular focus into MENA, and then going further up into Europe. We will be doing a market analysis assessment for WEF and Nexus applications in the region and in countries of the region selectively. So this substantiate both the WEM over the overall WEM assessment, but at the same time, the interventions about UfM Nexus and looking into the potential of developing this business at the country level. We want to develop material on Nexus technical solution and on promoting job related to Nexus. So you see an interlinkage there. All outputs are closely synergized in order to provide the maximum. But last but not least, to coordinate media engagement, increasing awareness both of the wider public, but also of targeted stakeholders. How we can do that? Only through synergies, and synergies. UNESCO and CMI have been all-time partners in developing this. We very much look forward into making this operational. ILO, UNIDO, CWAS, UNEPMAP, GRC, GIZ, MedCities, looking especially into the urban area, Inward Dam, are partners that have come forward expressing their interest to engage. And we definitely were thankful to SIDA for its long-term contribution, also for the next step in proving the concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vangelis, for this very crystal clear presentation. And I am very happy to announce that the UfM Secretariat is announcing, actually to re-announce, not announce, because this was announced by His Excellency Peter Lomberg, that the UfM Secretariat is working for advancing the proof of concept with allocation of funds for the next year. And we are in the final stages to materialize this cooperation. As well as I read in your line, as I know that this WEM agenda is to support the gender aspects in the water sector, the role of women and youth, and how to make a good contribution for these very important two elements in the water sector. With this, our main two partners today will be intervening, and they both are very great ladies from the Mediterranean. So I am very happy to invite Her Excellency Blanca Moreno Dosden, the manager of the CMI, to give her reflection. I'm very happy that her role as a person and as a manager for CMI to promote this great youth for the Mediterranean that the UfM Secretariat also is promoting with them. So floors is yours. Go ahead, Blanca.
Hello, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, well, good afternoon. Great to be connected with all of you. Thank you, Almotaz, and thank you, UfM, for always involving the CMI in these very important discussions on this time, the nexus between water, employment, and migration. It's a pleasure to be here and add our modest contribution to this very rich agenda. I don't have to elaborate on the nexus between water, employment, and migration that Vangelis just presented very well, but perhaps give you our perspective of how we see this in the Center for Mediterranean Integration and what we are doing about it. So in terms of the topic, the nexus, of course, we see that water scarcity, especially threatened by climate change, comes to aggravate already some of the existing tensions in the region that translate to unemployment, particularly unemployment of the youth, and that forced migration, not only from rural to urban areas, but forced migration throughout the region. And at the same time, we want to see a solution of these problems, which, by the way, are being aggravated by the unfortunate COVID-19 crisis. We see that solutions in the water sector could also be very good for job creation by using new technologies, by putting the youth to work on these solutions. The water sector could become a part of the response to the crisis. So what are we doing exactly at the Center for Mediterranean Integration? Last year, we had launched a series of working papers that were written by the youth in the advantage of this. And they were the members of the network called MediWatt that many of you know. The advantage of commissioning these papers to them is that they come from the ground. These young people can go to the field and collect the data, and then we pair them with experts who can give them comments on what they produce. And there were a number of papers that explores this nexus between water and migration. And this year we launched a similar series on the connection between water and climate change. And what is interesting is that some of those papers are actually written by entrepreneurs and propose concrete solutions. I'm thinking now of one of them that focuses on environmentally sound solutions to desalination. In other words, desalination techniques that don't hurt the environment. And these type of solutions could be perfect to create jobs for the youth. In addition to that, we have recently launched a water entrepreneurship program, also targeting youth, young water professionals. This is being implemented with also a key partner of water, CWAS, which is represented in the session today. And finally, our fourth action is a bit broader in the sense that it looks at the nexus between water security, water insecurity, in the region, which is critical for the stability of the region, particularly as the countries that are experiencing water scarcity need to become resilient, not only to climate change, but also to other crises as the current pandemic has shown. So we, as you know, either along the lines of these products that already exist, or also to respond to some of your kind initiatives to involve the CMI, we are very happy to continue collaborating with you. And there are many other partners that are speaking today that are also very valuable partners for us. So I thank everyone, also Ambassador Granada, for his impulse to this agenda, and for keeping the CMI as an active partner along the way. So thank you so much, and I'll be very happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Blanca, for this illustrative intervention. And I take note of our collaboration on the issue of youth, as well as on the employment and entrepreneurial. I am part of the jury to do this thing. We are happy to collaborate. And now I would like to move to our main partner on the UfM and in general on the UfM Water agenda, especially focusing on the gender toolkits that will give more guidance and more guiding to the country and member state how to engage the women and other gender aspect into the process of policy recommendation and the management of the water sector. So I give the floor for my great friend Michela Melotti, coordinator of UNESCO WAP. Floor is yours.
Okay, finally, okay. Hello, thank you very much, Almotaz. Thank you, Angelis, and to all participants, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and happy to see you again. You said right, UNESCO WAP is one of the veteran strategic partners of the UfM water agenda process, and has a particular attention on the WAM, on the programmatic area on water employment and migration. And since the beginning, WAP focused on two very specific aspects. One is the gender mainstreaming of the WAM pillars. And the second aspect is to contribute to strengthening capacity of the countries to conduct target assessments that serve to build the background for planning, for interventions, for investments, starting from a pilot testing and scaling up to a regional level. During the last WAM meeting in Istanbul, I want to talk about the second because I have 2 minutes. So I talk with for a very concrete action. During the last WAM meeting in Istanbul, WAP proposed to set the basis for a WAM pilot assessment with volunteering countries. So far, 2 countries have volunteers, Lebanon and Palestine, and we have created an assessment task force, a mini assessment task force, consisting of 2 countries' representatives from Lebanon and from Palestine. The WAM task force co-chair, and from Turkey, and the NGO Women for Water Partnership. As I said, this is a very concrete action, and now the task force is on the process to discuss the structure of the UfM assessment that UAP Secretariat has proposed. The ultimate goal of this exercise has been already told explained by Vangelis, but in any case is to provide data-based evidence to build actions that increase water-related employability and entrepreneurship in the countries while promoting gender equality and youth objectives. But in any case, the assessment consists of a socioeconomic and technical diagnostics to create an information baseline, a kind of a snapshot of the current situation of the interconnection between the access or the availability to water and sanitation, employment, the lack of employment or the creation of it, and people displacement in this case for these two countries. But of course, this could be on migration in case this is the ultimate solution in terms of adaptation to the climate change and water scarcity for other countries. The diagnostic will identify the main challenges, but also the opportunities in terms of water-related jobs and education, those that already exist but need to be boosted, or they need to be implemented from scratch with new investments. Among the opportunities, we will take into consideration also the synergic actions with other pillars like Wi-Fi Nexus, and as well as the adaptation techniques, the water adaptation techniques for the climate change, and of course the availability of new technologies and innovation that are already applied to the water sector. Of course, the pilot assessment will be designed to adopt the SDGs and target approach, and which is the most effective framework to achieve the Agenda 2030 and will be in line with the European Great Deal. So I just want to say that I want to extend the invitation to join the assessment task force to other countries or other partners, of course.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Just to comply to the team leader of this task force, where he asked me to take the Enrico Molinaro for his role, only 2 minutes, Enrico Molinaro, as a representative of the Annalyn Foundation, Italy, civil society, because this is all about civil society. Thank you.
Thank you, Almotaz. Thank you, everybody. This is a great pleasure for me to be again with you, because I've been cooperating for years now in this water expert group, and very focused in these 2 minutes. I would like to say only the meaning of the Ponza Prima Med initiative mentioned by Minister Granara a few minutes ago, which started from my work with you, all of you. I realized that it was important to get a stronger connection, more active connection between the different Euromed organizations, to use the words of Ambassador Kamel, in the Euromed ecosystem. So we organized the first meeting in Palermo on 15 May 2019, and then December 6, we extended from UfM and Annalyn Foundation also to the Prima Foundation and UNAOC with Ambassador Moratinos, who was one of the first diplomats to work on the Barcelona Declaration 25 years ago. And we launched the initiative a few days ago on December 13 with many of you, and also the Vice Minister of Italy, Marina Sereni, and Minister Al-Sharif, the Executive Director of Annalyn, the idea of a new manifesto. The manifesto will start from Ponza because Altiero Spinelli, like many other political prisoners, were taken there by the fascists until 1939. In the same archipelago, they were moved to Ventotene, and there they started to set up the Manifesto for Europe that was mentioned many times during this coronavirus crisis as a symbolic point of renewal of the Euromed cooperation, actually the European Union cooperation. So what we want to do is to introduce a Mediterranean element as a preliminary event to the summit in Barcelona planned for November 24, getting from all of you ideas and suggestions for this new manifest that we want to start precisely on this topic of the Prima Foundation, which are innovation and research on environment, sustainable development, circular economy, climate change, and food security. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Enrico Molinaro, for this. And now, sorry, everybody, I give the floor back to Mr. Vangalis to moderate the next session. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Almotaz. So very quickly to the next one. Keep in mind that we are already something like 40 or 45 minutes late. Not strange, but we are. So immediately, water supply and sanitation. Let me turn into the theme leaders. First, Manuel Sapiano, CEO of the Energy and Water Agency of Malta. Manuel. Manuel, you're mute.
Yeah. So thanks, Vangelis, and thanks to Almotaz and all our colleagues at this meeting. So to introduce WASH, I would definitely tie in WASH with SDG 6, water and sanitation for all. And looking at these last months, I would say that WASH has been the silent or the hidden hero which has accompanied through these months dominated by the COVID pandemic, where we have heard messages like wash your hands, messages about effective sanitation, and messages about the importance of disinfection. And therefore, the relevance of WASH and the relevance of SDG 6 has been highlighted throughout this period, and therefore as a key aspect of our, let's say, the sustainability of our future development, and therefore the centrality of WASH in the water and context of in the Mediterranean, but not only. Looking at the post-COVID scenario, we need to look, I would say, to consider two very important aspects. Firstly, how can we continue to increase access to water and sanitation to all our populations? In particular, in view of challenges like the urbanization and the concentration of people in cities and the creation of demand hotspots. And there we need to look at new technologies, new delocalized technologies, alternative technologies, as well as the generation of financing for bankable projects. And here I would definitely tie this aspect of WASH intricately with the water energy nexus and as well as the financial strategy, both also important pillars of the water agenda. In addition, we need to see how to foster research and development and support the market entry of new solutions, and in particular Mediterranean solutions. And definitely marketable solutions, their development will link to the development of the Mediterranean's green economy, and therefore linking to employment and migration, linking to youth opportunities for youth, as well as leading to gender empowerment. And here, definitely a note to the coming Mediterranean Water Forum, where this aspect of solutions, which can be delivered, will be a very key feature of the forum, which is planned to be held in Malta. To close, the UfM's water agenda can provide, as I see it, a very effective content and context throughout which such solutions can be developed. The agenda does not tackle WASH in isolation, tackles WASH in a comprehensive environment with the other pillars of the agenda itself, and therefore this context can lead to solutions, to the development and sustainment of solutions within this comprehensive environment. And this is within this context that WASH is being considered, solutions for WASH are being considered within the context of this area under the UfM agenda. that's from my part, and I would definitely leave the floor to the other contributions on the topic, as well as the foreseen activities for progressing the WASH agenda under the water strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Immediately to Tahani. Tahani Sled, the head of Central Department for External Cooperation at the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in Egypt.
Thank you, Bengalis. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. First of all, please allow me to thank the UfM for organizing this important meeting under the current circumstances, hoping that joining the efforts will help the region and the whole world to get out of the COVID-19 crisis and its serious implications. This crisis made us conclude that water should be at the heart of any recovery and development plan. It also reminds us of the necessity to maintain the financial sustainability and technical capacity of the water sector. At the same time, the implications of the emerging coronavirus for the Mediterranean region will change its approach by adopting more sustainable production and consumption patterns, as well as giving more attention to research and development in order to ensure water security in the region. UfM Water Agenda, especially WASH Action Plan, needs to move forward and take tangible steps with the support of UfM and the development partners in order to reach a certain level of readiness for all possible future similar circumstances. Since the start of the crisis, Egypt has taken serious and proactive steps for dealing with COVID-19 pandemic control. A partial lockdown has been implemented in the country. This curfew is also applicable on all methods of transport and vehicles. The suspension of international air traffic continues in all Egyptian airports until further notice, except for some exceptional flights, in addition to the suspension of all activities that require the presence of any large gatherings of citizens. Awareness posters and conferences were held to increase the people's consciousness about the COVID-19 virus and how to deal with it. Disinfection campaigns for streets and public services sites took place. As per the manpower, it was decided to reduce the number of employees in the units of the state's administrative apparatus, public sector companies, and public business sector companies, in addition to providing gloves and masks and disinfectants for the employees. The Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation has decreased by 20% its administrative manpower working in the current period. However, all senior officials and engineers are working at full capacity in presence and online. Assessment and evaluation of the water management strategy are taking place to meet the demands of different sectors in Egypt during the season when water needs are most extreme. In addition, the continuous monitoring of rice crops and water waste violations is continuing. Moreover, the ministry took advantage of the current situation to accelerate the implementation of canals rehabilitation projects in order to ensure raising the efficiency of the canal network and conversion to modern irrigation, as well as the implementation of flood protection works and water harvesting dams. With regards to water supply and sanitation, the Egyptian Holding Company for Water and Wastewater has taken the following practices and procedures: providing water and sanitation readings and payment services through internet, tanks, valves, chambers, and all drinking water components inside and outside the plant must be isolated from any potential sewage contamination, disinfecting the pipe networks before entering into service. For communities supplies by trucks or half-ground tanks, the water must achieve the proper residual chlorine at the end user. Raising customer awareness about the importance of keeping tanks clean, and microbiology labs in particular have to undergo the safety precautions. Chemists and technicians have to obligate wearing personal protective equipment for their sector. Finally, we're looking forward for tangible cooperation and support from development partners and UfM countries in order to combat the pandemic's implications, especially providing technical support and lessons learned from success stories in the region. We still, here in Egypt, need to flatten the curve. So we'll need essentially to learn from your success stories in the UfM region. And finally, I'd like to wish you all safety and health. And maybe if we hold the Cairo Water Week online, or we delay it a little bit and postpone it, that we have another new UfM successful event like the one that we had last year. Thank you very much, and sorry for being too long.
Thank you very much, and we very much look forward to the Cairo Water Week. Hopefully, it will take place even with delay. So, thank you, Tahani. Now, let me get into the brief presentations now from the technical facilitators for the WASH team. And let me first go to Hasmi Kianou, Executive Director of the Mediterranean Water Institute. Hasmi. Hasmi?
Mustafa
Yes.
Nasruddin and then Hashim.
Yes, Hasmi is here.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes. Just will be per mute. Beginning, Mustafa will be introduce the first slide, and after me.
Yeah, okay, thank you for unmuting me. Thank you, everyone, and hopefully we will not take much of your time. I will prepare now the presentation for one moment. Can you see the screen now?
No, you beautiful.
Again, share screen. Now, is it okay?
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time and opportunity to be here. We want to present now the updates on the WASH thematic priority. One moment. For the newcomers, as you know, the thematic area on water and sanitation and hygiene, it aims at enhancing the integrated natural resources management means for sustainable development in the UfM region. Basically, we are talking about mainly the SDG 6 with the clean water and sanitation for all, either on rural or urban areas, through the objective of introducing or promoting the integrated approach for achieving the WASH SDG goal and catalyze actions for mainstreaming financing in the UfM member states at the national, local, regional level. And we all know through the COVID-19, as my colleague Noel Zapiano said, that WASH was the hidden hero, which is focusing on that regard. The activities we have done so far, this is the timeline for the WASH group activities, starting from the UfM ministerial meeting in Malta back in 2017, with a long process of the events of the WIG meetings and especially the last one, which took place last year in June in Brussels. After that, we did an update on the activities we have done. Last year, we were lucky to present our group activities as well in the EU UfM Water Governance and Business Forum, which took place back-to-back with the Cairo Water Week. For the task force outputs, we're looking at identifying the solutions and innovations that facing the WASH sector and prioritizing them according to different countries in the UfM countries in Mediterranean. We want also to work on strengthening the WASH governance settings for also different scales. And within the work plan, we look at planning and implementation of pilot innovation solutions. This will also help us to do knowledge sharing and build the capacity of WASH and policies with the UfM countries. All these outputs will also go into the outcomes that eventually that the SDGs, the SDG 6 for water and sanitation is being implemented and increased. By this, we all know that the protection of human health and habitat will also be protected through the biodiversity and reduce of the water and land pollution through contamination. in potential contamination, and in particularly, eventually, this will improve the livelihood. In order to save you the time, because we are the rest of the day, I will give the floor now to Mr. Hashmi Kinno to continue with the work plan of the WASH thematic priority.
Thank you. Merci. Je serai.
Thank you very much. Maybe I'm going to be the only one. Maybe I'm going to be the only one that I'm going to speak in French. You know that I don't want Vangelis to suffer my English pronunciation from Oxford. Well, in order to be very clear about our work plan, we've assessed the different chronology for the first stage. And as you know, Manuel Sapiano already mentioned about the Mediterranean solutions that we have, and it's key that for the first period, to have a state-of-the-art report, and Anki already mentioned it, and we believe it, that we can together, due to this COVID-19 crisis, we can witness our Mediterranean specificities. As you all know, COVID-19 made us suffer a lot of population, and mainly the southern and eastern part of the Mediterranean were better placed than the northern part of the Mediterranean. We can all see the statistics and data. Therefore, WASH, it is therefore the access to drink water and hygiene. Hygiene is health, right? Therefore, we are offering and we are proposing for this first stage to go to the second quarter of the next year, and maybe at the end of next year we'll have something to offer you, a report that will offer us the possibility to know what has been the activity developed by WASH. We'll be able to have this deliverable. The second action that it is vital to us, and it's capital, the action that will allow us to find a Mediterranean solution together with these two team leaders, Manuel and Tahani. We'll see for sure, together with our dear friends Isidro and Moites, we'll look for a new possibility. Of course, right now we count on the support of this conference call, and we can develop different workshops, and we'll be able to define new meetings of our WASH group, but it will rely on the agenda that the UfM will set. That's why, the next slide, please. Can you show the next slide? Thank you. This is just a mere presentation of our wishes. First of all, we want to capitalize on the results of the first UfM ACWIF after the Rome meeting, when we set the horizontal financial needs. We want to develop a real PPP program. On the other hand, we want to better develop an answer, but specific answers and realistic answers. That's why that since the beginning, the IME has developed different webinars with the UfM, and would like to have a Mediterranean answer to all the questions. We have a very important event that will allow us to know the state of the art, which is the 4th Mediterranean Water Forum update, that will make us to participate in the 9th World Water Forum, and this will allow us to show to water community what are the WASH solutions. It is more than clear that we want to review our work plan, and we'd like to have a little bit more of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hashmi and Mustafa, also for keeping the time. Now, immediately we go to the next and final session, which is on water and climate change adaptation. At this stage, let me ask you, those that wish to intervene, to come forward and raise your hand. You can do that through the bar. So you will be registered for interventions. We are going to have short time, only 15 minutes for interventions for a session that will be facilitated by Almotas. So while you are doing that, let me turn immediately to the theme leader of the climate change thematic to Morocco. So Siham Laraichi, the head of concessions and partnership services at the Ministry of Equipment, Transport, Logistics and Water. Siham.
Bonjour à tous.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Vangelis. It is a pleasure to me to congratulate you all. Thank you very much for organizing this meeting. Thank you to the General Secretariat at the UfM. Thank you very much to all the participants that have shown the different projects, and we were able to witness all the different progresses and these new strategies for the future coming. Thank you very much to all the partners that gave us all the support that was needed. Thank you very much to all of you for the renewed support. As for our work team to climate change adaptation, we met last year, but it is a task force that it is very important and it's a vital element, climate change, and how climate change has an impact on society and ecosystems. We should be at the center of all climate negotiations and adaptation plans. And this is something that we try to develop in all the programs together with all our partners. The majority of the international funds should better arrive in order to address the issue of climate change and water, mainly in the MENA region, because we are suffering a lot of droughts and water scarcity. This is one of the main problems. This is something that we can witness in my country, Morocco. If we come back to the last meeting, WG meeting, we had the chance to get a great training together with the support of the GSF, and UMED that offered different tools and ideas that allowed us to know the different stages and demands for better climate change adaptation, thanks to the support of the Climate Change Fund. We also talk about the different actions that could be taken together with this task force. Unfortunately, we were not able to progress since the last meeting, and we had to get adapted to these new pandemics, and well, we need to think about more specific actions to give new continuity to all the training that started in the past, and also we want to see what are the different solutions and different guidelines, different action plans of all the country members when we need to find a better strategy for climate change adaptation, and also to witness all the synergies together with the programs that have been launched by all the partners together with the new Green Deal and it has been launched by the European Union. So we'd like to know what can be done in the next future. To us in Morocco, well, we in Morocco, we meanwhile developed a national plan for water management that tries to deal with these climate change issues in different axes, mainly water diversification, water production, and as well as water sanitation. It is to us a key point, and we must face all the obstacles in order to overcome them and to reach the SDGs, the Millennium Goals, to better manage drinking water in urban and rural areas. Well, we also had a national project for water, as well as drinking water production, in order to improve the water distribution and water savings. It is a new project that has been launched for 2020-2021. So now I'd like to make a call. I'd like to invite you to tell us what are the strategies and guidelines, and to gather all the knowledge to better detect all the possibilities that have been launched by all the partners, and to improve our collaboration in order to better get adapted to the climate change. There are many things to do. Siham.
Let me interrupt you because we are getting really off time. If you can conclude.
Yes, I'm just reaching to my conclusion. I will wish that all the countries to take advantage of the different tools created by all the partners, and a better cooperation amongst us. This is what we all wish. And, well, you know that this subject is very important. Thank you very much, and I'm really sorry.
Thank you so much. So immediately to France, to Aurélie. Are you following? Aurélie Guillemot, she's from the Ministry of Ecology. Yes.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I take part for the first time in this meeting. I will be short because we are lacking of time. Let me remind you that the climate crisis is directly linked to water, fresh water playing a crucial role as for the reduction of inequalities, and the international community is much interested in this subject, as I remind in the edition of 2020 entitled Water and Climate Change. Climate change affects the water cycle through several processes. That's common in the Mediterranean. The consequences of the climate change are perceptible on water resources, and there is a deep impact on the water cycle, aggravating the risk of natural catastrophes, soil degradation, water ecosystems degradation. Sometimes it turns into salinization, too much salinization. So that's a threat for current uses that might be environmental, ecological, or industrial soils and uses. 9.7 billion. This increase of needs the consequences of climate change to reinforce the pressures on resources. In fact, If we want a sustainable future, that's the water management and the marine environments must be a priority. We have to think about our capacity of health resilience. Water is a part of solution within the 2030 agenda. It is described as the right of people to water and sanitation. The ones that deal with marine ecosystems, clean energy industry, as well as water that ensures life in sustainable environment. It is one of the key to the adaptation to climate change. It is an essential element of successful strategies as the Paris Agreement has set. It is necessary to reinforce the knowledge of climate at a local level. We have to develop solutions based on nature. We have to improve the practices of water management and better adapt. France has adopted a new international strategy for water and water sanitation. This strategy allows us to keep being involved as for effective access to water and sanitation. Finally, I want to say that France encourages the stakeholders of the UfM to set the Paris agreements with initiatives such as this desalination, this Global Alliance for Water Alliance, which works for the adaptation to climate change. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much also for keeping the time. Let me turn immediately to Khalid Msamani, UfM TA advisor for climate agenda. Khalid, to you.
Thank you, Vangelis. I'm going to share my screen right now. I hope you have it now. Okay. Hello. Can you see my screen? Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna save, thanks to the video you already showed earlier, I'm gonna save to me a few, let's say a few seconds. So as you know, the water climate change adaptation is one of the priority area of the policy, the UfM policy, water policy framework. But let me start by just reminding that according to the latest IPCC's report, along with the MEDEC preliminary data, which is the first assessment report on Mediterranean, we have some really scary figures that shows that the actual policies taken by the various Mediterranean countries, like as they has been presented within the NDCs, according to the Paris Agreement, will lead to an increased regional temperature of 2.2 degrees C by 2040, while we should keep our global temperature well below 2 degrees C. This is an important data to keep in mind. And also the decrease in freshwater resources might reach 15%, which was one of the most or the worst figure in the world. So let me just go faster and remind the process of the water CCA until now. So first of all, it started in Malta in 2017, where it was acknowledged the impact of climate change on water resources at the UfM ministerial meeting. And then on the WEG 8 in the Dead Sea, the water CCA was considered as a priority work area. And to go fast, the WEG 9 in Athens in 2018 dedicated one of the first session actually on water adaptation to climate change. And finally, the green light was provided for the implementation of the work plan of the water CCA thematic area. So let me just remind that since our last WEG in June 2019, we had the following activities under this priority area, which is, first of all, we did a very important, interesting study, which was the mapping of the water CCA initiatives within the context of the UfM and outside the context of UfM. Those are all the Mediterranean initiatives that tackle the water climate change adaptation within the region. And from that, we presented this study at the Cairo Water Governance and Business Forum in last October 2019 and within the Cairo Water Week. We also elaborated an important report where on the occasion of the GCF technical workshop held in Brussels, and also participated in the ministerial mock-up declaration on climate change in the Mediterranean, which under the World Youth Forum, which shows the role of youth to face the global and regional challenges. So to go fast, let me directly go to the recommendations for the mid and long term within this framework of the water CCA priority area. First of all, we should continue our follow-up on the Brussels GCF meeting. So a call to establish a regional partnership was announced. It was called the UfM Partnership for Water, Climate, Finance and Investment. So there is a necessity to establish a UfM also Water and Climate Day that could be included as part of the UN Global UNFCCC Climate Action Agenda. This is very, very important to keep the momentum of this priority area. We should also support the UfM's member state to mainstream ambitious water climate adaptation projects in their national determined contributions, and ensure that the synergies of water CCA are there between the NDCs, the national adaptation plans, the SDGs, and the part that we are tend to forget is the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So we need to urge also the member state to implement national monitoring and evaluation systems for water climate adaptation interventions, and doing this by having a set of outcomes and process indicators to track the adaptation in the water sector, the adaptation interventions, and this will help those member states of the Mediterranean region to be ready for the 2023 global stocktake, which is part of the Article 14 of the Paris Agreement, and also within the framework of the global goal on adaptation, which is the Article 7 of the Paris Agreements. And those two articles are a commitment that the countries took when they ratified the Paris Agreement. So they need to be ready in terms of capacity building, in terms of project preparation, in terms of reporting preparation. And then also the fifth recommendation is to continue promoting expertise, knowledge, and peer-to-peer exchange among UfM member states related to water adaptation to climate change. And the water CCA should manage to be in the radar of the foreseen EU Green Deal, which is accounted for the 2021, and the strategy, which is called the Strategy on Adaptation to Climate Change. My last recommendation today is we need to implement as soon as possible the Water Climate Change Adaptation Task Force in order for the group and in order for this component of the water strategic framework to implement all these tasks that has been set up and need to be implemented within this framework. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Khalid. Immediately to Anjali. Anjali Lohani, Program Specialist for Climate and Water Resources Management in the Global Water Partnership. The last of the 20 speakers in something more than 1 hour. That was a marathon. Anjali, to you.
Thank you so much, Vangelis. And perhaps my reflections would be a continuation, really, of what Khalid was saying. From the GWP's perspective, really, the Green Climate Fund remains a significant opportunity for providing climate finance to build resilience via water. In the last replenishment of the GCF, leading up to COP25 in Madrid last December, the GCF has received a replenishment of over 9 billion for the 2020 to 2024 funding period. And of course, the ambition of the GCF is much greater. From the Paris Agreement, its ambition is to be providing countries climate finance finance to the tune of 100 billion a year. Therefore, the GCF still remains a very strategic source. It has quite a few windows through which countries can access support at different points in the project development cycle, upstream while laying the foundational elements in the institutional elements and the capacity elements. There are windows available for the actual project development, the development of the proposal. And then, of course, there is the big, in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars that's available for investment implementation. But despite all of this funding being available, there's barriers at the country level to access GCF support. These barriers remain high in terms of both understanding and capacity, both at human and institutional level. But the GCF recognizes these barriers, and specifically to address these barriers, it makes available 1 million per year per country to strengthen the institutional capacities, the governance mechanisms, and to enable identification of projects, and specifically to get into the implementation, which I've heard so much throughout today. To develop the concept notes, which is the first step to getting onto the implementation. So this 1 million per year per country is available, but the GCF says that countries are underutilizing this. From the water perspective, we observe from the Global Water Partnership and our partners, the UfM, and our broader partnership base, we see that the water ministries may not be sufficiently aware of these opportunities, and we might not be sufficiently connected at the country level to the GCF national focal points. These are the GCF national designated authorities, who are often the ministries of environment or planning. So as a result, from the water side, we're not being able to tap into even new opportunities for GCF financing that become available. As an example, I can share with you in December 2019, a multi-year readiness window has been available. So countries can utilize, countries can put in proposals for $3 million for a 3-year project, understanding that setting up the governance mechanisms takes time. It's not a 1-year project. Understanding that capacity building, maybe it's more realistic to package your capacity building activities over 3 years rather than 1. So this new window has become available. Additionally, a new modality that became available last December was multi-country readiness workshop, which from the water, or multi-country readiness, which from the water side is very pertinent. We could take a basin level approach, or we could integrate a nexus approach, which we've discussed today. So these multi-country readiness windows has recently become available, applicable, relevant to the water community, but we're not being able to take advantage of this. The UfM and GWP Med has joined forces, and to address these barriers, as Khalid mentioned, we organized the Brussels workshop last year. Many of you are aware, this was an initiative under the UfM Water Agenda and its financing mechanism. The GCF and WMO were present and provided technical inputs into running of this workshop. And the workshop was supported by Sweden, of course. It brought together 12 countries. There were 45 participants. And very importantly, the country level participants brought together 22 project ideas. 22 project ideas from their national development plans or climate change strategies that they thought had potential to take forward to an actual GCF concept note and then to a full proposal. From the country level, we had the country national designated authority, so the GCF national focal point, the water ministry, as well as regionally and nationally accredited entities that one would need to work with to actually package the GCF project. So in the follow-up to this workshop, the GWP Global Climate Team is already supporting 3 individual countries that have requested support. These are Montenegro and Libya, and Mauritania. In Montenegro and Libya, we are supporting to access, the 1 million per year per country, that window, the GCF readiness window. In Mauritania, we're supporting the country in developing the concept note, and also a proposal for the GCF project preparation facility, through which we may access 1.5 million a year for Mauritania to conduct the feasibility studies, detailed design, environmental social impact analyses, gender analysis, gender action plan, etc. So, but as
Anjali, let me ask you to conclude.
Okay, I will do so, Vangelis. Thank you. But as we support these individual countries, I would like to emphasize Khalid's point, and recognize that the formal demand from UfM countries for a UfM GWP partnership to be facilitating the capacitating of these water ministries and the NDAs, and assisting countries to access international climate finance for transformative climate resilience water projects is very much on the table. One last point, Vangelis, before you cut me off. From the GWP side, an important milestone: we signed the GCF grant agreement for the Zambia NAP project just last week. So we are very much, in the game now, supporting countries on the implementation stage as well. So we welcome you to reach out to us, GWP Med and the UfM Secretariat, for support on this front to be packaging and implementing GCF projects. Thanks.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you so much. So we have completed the marathon. Let me share that, at least on my side, I believe that it was at least informative. Hopefully it has attracted the attention and the interest of everybody. I see a big number of participants still online, which is very encouraging after more than 3 hours, 3.5 almost hours together, very long for online encounter. Almotaz, over to you for the facilitated discussion.
Thank you very much, Vangelis, with this. I saw the chat box, and I been guided by some of our colleagues about some intervention already requested. But to work as a teaser from Aniale presentation, congratulations for the signing the agreement and the call for our member state to liaise with you. We are ready to put ourselves on the bridge for that liaison officer to see how our member state can intervene. So this is call for you all from Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, and other member states to see how they can get benefit from this agreement. Now I can see that Turkey, Horia, want to intervene, and I think also I saw from Spain, Conchita. So can I give you the floor, Horia, to intervene?
Okay. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for this fruitful consultation meeting. I want to thank you for my colleague Tuba also for her intervention. And I just want to give two small interventions about climate change and water resources in Turkey. I want to emphasize that there is, I mentioned before, there's a project about water resources, climate change impact on water resources. During the next 30 years, the average temperature in Turkey is expected to be experienced an increase of more than 4 degrees Celsius. It's expected that the highest temperature increases will occur in the spring and summer months, and especially in the eastern and southeastern basins. As you know, Euphrates and Tigris transboundary river basin and Orontes also as well. The temperature increases will be a little bit higher than in the other regions also. On the other hand, there is a close linkage between the COVID-19 and epidemics and the water use and water needs. During the COVID-19 period, water use and need for water increases. According to projections, decreases in precipitation could likely cause decrease in gross water potential and in half of the 25 river basins in Turkey, especially I mentioned before, Orontes, Asi, and Euphrates Tigris transboundary river basins. And I want to emphasize that most of the river basins, there will be water deficits because of the decreasing water potential in Turkey. And the second intervention is about hydropower, Turkish hydropower status. Turkey ranks second in Europe for hydropower energy after Norway. The International Hydropower Association released a report in 2020, Hydropower Status Report, and Turkey's
total hydropower capacity is accounted to be the second in Europe. And also the report mentions that Turkey enhanced its capacity by 219 megawatts and was ranked as the top of the European country in the category of added capacity.
Thank you, Horia. Please, I need to give the floor for other participants.
Okay, I want to emphasize one thing that meanwhile, according to FDI markets data, Turkey ranked first and has a 20% share in the Europe regarding to total FDI inflows.
Okay, thank you.
I want to mention this one. Thank you also giving the floor.
Now I give the floor. I have either Hadil Faidi from Palestine or Concheta from Spain. Who will take the floor? Hello?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Hadil, go ahead.
Okay. I'm from Palestine, representing Palestinian Water Authority. I will make my intervention regarding the COVID period. In Palestine, we were in quarantine since 22 of March 2020. We start going back to the normal life and back to work since only 27th of May. We're still now in the emergency period till 7th of June. BWA have many response to COVID-19. It make a strategic plan to handle COVID-19. Also, we work with, as political situation in Palestine very hard and we can't work by ourselves. We have worked closely with World Bank, with all WASH response, the cluster of working in emergency cases. We have gathered more than $8 million in order to achieve our goals in the emergency plan, but we still need more than in order to face the spread of coronavirus in Palestine, especially the Palestinian situation now and the Israeli working on the Jordan Valley and taking it to Israel. We have a very hard conflict situation. We have spread all the statements with Israel, and we are facing the COVID. And maybe tomorrow I will make more intervention about all the intervention we have against the COVID, and maybe talk about the opportunity from your side, how to help us in controlling the spread of coronavirus. I appreciate very much this being participating in this meeting, and it was an honor to be for me to be part of you. And thanks everyone for your listening and your participation. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Hadil, for this. And we are looking forward for tomorrow intervention. I can see that the whole meeting is still, we have 7 minutes to go, and I don't see anybody is raising hand, except somebody can notify me that want to intervene by taking the floor. Otherwise, we will go for saying goodbye and see you tomorrow. Okay, Vangalis.
Nothing much to add, simply that tomorrow we will start at 9:30 Central European Time. Thank you so much for staying along with us. It is very encouraging over these difficult times to see that the spirit is high, the demand is vivid, and we very much look forward to continue this exchange and to making it happen.
And from my side, on behalf of the UfM Secretariat and our Secretary General, Nasser Kamel, I thank you very much and looking forward to see you tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a very good day for discussion the investment opportunities, as well as we will have a high-level segment where we will have some of our ministers intervening with our Secretary General. So we are looking forward for that. I am very happy to see still 57 participants even we are late 1 hour beyond the schedule. Before concluding, I would like to thank our company that managing us, as well as the translator. Without them, we will not understand each other very well. Even myself, I start really understanding the French through the pandemic, as I am a student for the French Institute. Merci beaucoup à tous.
Thank you very much, Atos. Thank you very much, everyone.
We ask everybody to open the cameras. Can we do that? We have been following, this advice to have the cameras closed. But if we can do that simply for a bye-bye for the afternoon, and a great thanks to everybody for your patience and for your great contributions. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.